record in the Simpson matter. Mr. Simpson is again present before the court with his counsel, Mr. Shapiro, Mr. Cochran, Mr. Douglas, Mr. Bailey, people represented by Ms. Clark and Mr. Darden. The jury is not present. Counsel, is there anything we need to take up before we invite the jurors to rejoin us? Ms. Clark, anything for the people? Yeah. All right, Deputy McNair, let's have the jurors, please.
Mrs. Shirley Baker, Your Honor. She is ordered to be identified.
All right, thank you. Let the record reflect we've now been rejoined by all the members of our jury panel. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. And the defense may call their next witness. Mr. Shapiro.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Our next witness is Mrs. Shirley Baker.
All right, Mrs. Baker.
You do solemnly swear that the testimony you may give in the class continued before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do. Please have a seat in which you stand and state and spell your first and last name for the record.
My name is Maddie Shirley Simpson Baker. Mattie Shirley Simpson Baker. Thank you.
Good morning, Mrs. Baker.
Good morning.
How are you today?
Fine.
You are a sister of Mr. OJ Simpson?
Yes, I'm his oldest and his big sister.
Well, you took care of him while he was growing up.
Yes.
And did you, have you been coming to court on a regular basis since this trial began?
Yes.
Are you employed also? Or
I was until November of last year.
And that
I'm
was
on a leave now.
because of your interest in coming here and supporting your brother?
Yes.
When you come to Los Angeles, where do you stay?
We stay at OJ's house.
And when you say we, who stays there with you?
Well, my husband and myself, we're there. My sister Carmelita's there. Jason, Arnell, and Paula, when she's in town, she's there. When my mother's here, she's there. And when my children come, we're all there.
And are all those people there now?
Yes.
I want to direct your attention to the night of June the 13th. Did you get some very unfortunate news?
Yes, we did.
And what was that news?
We found out that Nicole had been murdered.
And as a result of that, did you come to Los Angeles?
Yes, we did.
Who did you come with?
My mother and I, we came on the 3 o'clock flight from San Francisco.
And at some time that early evening, did you arrive at your brother's house on Rockingham?
Yes, we did.
Where was your brother when you arrived?
My brother, the first time we went there, we weren't able to get in. And when we went back, we went into the house and my brother was sitting on the couch in the TV room.
Why weren't you able to get in the first time?
The police would not allow us into the home.
And what time was this?
4:30, 5 o'clock.
Where did you go?
We left there and we went to the police station to see if we could find out anything. And then from there, we left and we went to the Brentwood Lodge, which is up the street from OJ's house.
And then you returned that evening?
Yes, we kept calling until we were able to get into the house.
When you came into the house, did you see your brother?
Yes, we walked in and went into the TV room, and he was sitting there.
And can you describe what his mood and demeanor was like when you first saw him?
He was devastated. He was crying. He was sad. He was in disbelief. He was in shock. It was sad. It was just so sad.
Did you try to comfort him?
We tried to, but we were all in shock. Nicole had been a part of our family for 17 years, and we couldn't believe what was going on, and we didn't know what was going on because we were only hearing bits and pieces from the newspaper and everything, and the TV. We had no idea what had happened, and we were all just devastated.
Were there other family members there when you were there with your brother?
Yes, there were.
What other family members were there?
My mother was there. Arnell was there. Jason was there. There was a house full of people there. Some of my children were there, friends.
Were there people that were coming and going?
Constantly.
And they were paying their condolences?
Yes.
During this period of time when you were downstairs, did you sit near your brother?
Yes, we sat on the couch in the TV room. There's a big couch there, and OJ was sitting there, and my mother was sitting on one side of him, and I was sitting on the other side of him, and he was, as I say, he was devastated. He was exhausted because he had been on the plane the night before. He had gone to Chicago, and then he had returned, and then all of this was happening, and he was just, it was sad. We were all very, very sad because we couldn't believe what had happened.
While you were sitting on the couch, did your brother ever leave your presence?
No.
At some point in time, did you and your brother leave the couch?
Yes. He was sitting on the couch and he was holding my mother's hand, and sometimes he would lean on her shoulder, and then sometimes he would lay his head back on the couch and close his eyes, and we kept urging him to go upstairs and to try to lay down and to try to rest, because every time he would lean back and he would close his eyes for a minute or two, he would jerk or somebody would say something, or he was trying to listen to everything because there was a lot of commotion going on in there, and we were trying to get him to go upstairs. I asked Robert Kardashian if he would take OJ upstairs because we thought he needed to leave from downstairs.
And did Mr. Kardashian take him upstairs?
Yes, they got up from the couch. They walked down the hallway. He stopped. He paused at the kitchen door, and he said something to someone in the kitchen, and then he and Robert walked up the stairs.
Did you go up the stairs shortly
I
thereafter?
walked up the stairs directly behind them.
And when you got upstairs, was there anyone up there?
The only person that was upstairs at that time was my brother-in-law, who was in the front bedroom, and he was in the bed.
When you got upstairs, where did your brother go?
My brother and Robert Kardashian walked into the room. I hesitated at Justin's room while they went into the room for OJ to get into the bed. I stood in the doorway. He walked towards in the room, and I stood back. OJ and Robert walked in. OJ took his pants off, or Robert took his pants off. I didn't see who did it. OJ laid in the bed, and then I walked into the room.
During the time you were here watching the trial, did you see a man by the name of Ron Shipp testify?
Yes, I did.
And did you hear his testimony?
Yes, I did.
During the time that you were with your brother sitting on the couch, did you ever see Ron Shipp talk privately to your brother?
No.
During the time you went upstairs to the bedroom with your brother, did you ever see Ron Shipp come up and talk privately to your brother?
Ron Shipp did come up to the bedroom. I was in the bedroom. I was sitting on the couch. The telephone was ringing, and OJ had just closed his eyes for a moment. And when the telephone rung, OJ started to shake. And I asked Ron, I said, Ron, is there any way that you can turn that phone off or unplug the phone? He walked around the side of the bed, and he unplugged the phone. And it seemed to me like I could still hear the phone ringing, so he took the phone, and I think he put it in the nightstand. He said a few words to me, and then he left the room, and he never returned to that room again.
So you are absolutely certain at no time did your brother speak privately to Ron Shipp in the bedroom that night?
I'm absolutely certain, yes.
Where did you spend the night?
I spent the night on the couch and laying on the bed in OJ's room. My husband and my other children came at about 10 o'clock, and my husband came upstairs, and the two of us stayed in OJ's room until the next morning, until Robert Kardashian and Howard Wiseman came to the house.
So with the exception of the time that your brother went in to get in bed with Robert Kardashian, you were with your brother the entire time he was in the bedroom?
Every moment until that morning.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
People.
Good morning, Ms. Bailey.
Good morning.
Can you tell us what time it was when you went up to the bedroom?
It was a little after 9.
Okay. And then at that point, when you went up to the bedroom, when did you leave?
Say that again.
I'm sorry. How long did you stay in the bedroom?
I stayed in the bed. I was in the bedroom the entire time. A little after 10, my husband and my daughter, two of my daughters arrived, and my husband came upstairs. We met on the stairway. I told him that we were sleeping in OJ's room that night, and he said, where are we sleeping? And I said, well, we'll sleep on the couch. One of us will sleep on the bed. I want to be close to him. I want to be near him. And he said, okay, and that's what we did all night and the next morning.
Now, when you met him on the stairs, did you take him downstairs, give him something to drink or eat?
No, my nieces were there. My sister was there. I had 3 daughters that was there. There was a house full of people.
Okay. So you did not give your husband anything to eat or drink after I'm talking about, regular
No.
beverages. I'm not talking about drink. I'm talking about something to sustain him, some liquid, some food, anything? No.
We didn't think about eating. Our concern was we wanted to be, we were a family, and Nicole had been killed, and we wanted to be with O'Day. We wanted to be with the children. We wanted to be together. I didn't even think about food.
Food was brought in, though, wasn't it?
The next day, yes.
Yeah. So you went up to the bedroom at about 9 o'clock, and at about 10 o'clock you met your husband on the stairway, is that right?
That's correct.
And you spoke to him there?
Yes.
Okay. And then after you spoke to him on the stairway, did you go downstairs with him at any point?
No,
You
not
stayed
that
with
night.
him on the stairway there?
I met him on the stairway. We spoke. We embraced. I think he kissed me on the cheek. We turned around, walked back up the stairway, went into OJ's room.
Okay. And you heard Ron Shipp testify to the conversation he had with the defendant with Mr. Simpson about having a dream about killing Nicole. You recall that testimony?
I heard it on TV. I wasn't in the courtroom. I got sent out the courtroom when he was testifying.
Okay. And you watched that testimony on TV, did you?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Now, when you got up the next morning on the 14th, did you see Mr. Simpson?
I saw him. He was in the bed. He never left the bed.
Okay.
Except to go into his bathroom.
Okay. And on the day of the 14th, did he leave the house at some point?
At some point, yes.
Okay. And were you still at the house?
I live at the house.
Okay. I'm talking about in that week. I know that's true now. Did you stay there the whole week?
I lived there then.
All right. Did he come back on the 14th?
We were in and out of the house. I don't know the comings and going. Once Robert Kardashian and Howard Wiseman came, they were dealing with OJ, and at that point, I was dealing with my niece and nephew. And we were coming and going. I was leaving the house. I was there sometime. I wasn't there. I was taking care of my mother and my children.
Okay, when
so
you
at that time, I don't know about OJ's coming and going on that particular day.
All right. And when you say your niece and nephew, you mean Arnell and Jason, correct?
Arnell and Jason.
All right. You did not see Sydney and Justin there, did you?
Sydney and Justin had already left when we got there.
Okay. And during the time that you were staying there, which was that whole week, you did not see Sydney and Justin at Rockingham, is that correct?
Oral.
No.
Now, when Mr. Simpson left on the 14th, do you know where he went?
I don't even know if he left on the 14th. The days after the initial day, everything started running back and forth together. So if he left, no, I wouldn't know where he left because I didn't go with him.
Okay. Do you recall? Excuse me a minute. Did you see Robert Kardashian at the house, Miss Baker?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Did you see when he... What time was it when you got there on the 13th?
It was the second time?
No, no. Oh, yeah. That's right. I'm sorry.
It was after 7 o'clock.
After 7. The first time, what time was it when you got there?
We caught the 3 o'clock flight from San Francisco, and my daughter picked us up from the airport. It was about 4:30, 5 o'clock.
Okay. Did you see Mr. Kardashian carry away the Louis Vuitton garment bag that Mr. Simpson had brought back with him from Chicago?
No,
You never saw that bag?
no.
During the evening that you spent in Mr. Simpson's bedroom, did you ever leave the room to change clothes or go to the bathroom or anything?
I went to the front bathroom, Nicole's bathroom.
Nicole's. And what about your husband?
My husband was on the couch.
Did he ever leave the room?
When he went to the bathroom, he either went to Nicole's bathroom or to OJ's bathroom.
Okay. And your children were staying downstairs, is that right?
2 of them stayed out in one of the guest houses, yes.
Okay. Do you know which guest house they stayed in?
Whichever one was vacant at that time.
Okay. Arnell was there, correct?
Correct.
On the evening of the 13th, do you recall where she was at about 8 o'clock in the early evening hours?
We were all downstairs.
Do you recall? Let me ask you this. I'll make it more specific.
Okay.
Do you recall at some point that she went to her room?
No, I don't.
Okay. You weren't focusing on her.
No, because at that time, when we originally got there, when my mother and I got there, we went to the TV room and we were sitting on the couch with OJ. There were a lot of people coming and going. The telephone was ringing, and we were sitting there with OJ.
Okay, so you were focused there, correct? And you weren't particularly paying attention to the people that were coming and going?
No, not really.
All right. So if I asked you who was there and who was not there, you're not going to be able to tell me, is that right?
Outside of my family,
All right. I'm
Robert Kardashian and a few people that I know.
How about Mr. Simpson's lawyer, Skip Taft? Remember him being there?
I don't remember seeing Skip that night, no.
Okay. How about Cato Kalin? Do you remember seeing him
Oh,
there?
yes, he was there.
Okay. And what about Howard Weitzman? Do you know if he was there?
I saw him the next morning.
Okay. You didn't see him there that day? Or
I
you
didn't
don't
see him.
recall?
No,
Okay. He could have been there, but you don't remember? Is that...
I didn't see him.
All right. No. November, have you been staying at Rockingham?
Yes, I stay there all the time. Actually, Rockingham is now my home.
And does your sister Carmelita Durio stay there also?
Yes,
And she has been for some time as well?
yes, she has.
And does Arnell visit there frequently, or does she stay there?
Arnell lives there.
Okay, so the three of you are all living there together at this point?
Well, there's more than three of us. There's Arnell, there's Jason, there's my husband and myself, my sister Carmelita, my mother when she comes down here, and my children when they're in town, and Paula when she's in town. So every room there's a full now.
Okay. So the whole family, and since the beginning of this trial, at least, or since November, you and your sister Carmelita and Arnell and Jason have been full-time residents there. Is that
Mr.
correct?
Baker, my husband, Ben.
Yes.
Yes, yes, we have.
Thank you.
Mr. Shapiro?
Do you still on occasion return to your home in San Francisco?
We come down on Monday, and we go back on Friday or Saturday morning and return the next week.
Mrs. Baker, on the 14th, could you describe to the jury what the atmosphere was like around the house on Rockingham, on Ashford, out in front?
You have to be honest, sir.
Oh,
It's something that you would not believe. I will never take my grandchildren to the zoo again because that's exactly how we felt. It was unbelievable. At nighttime, it was lit up like we were in Disneyland. It was unbelievable.
And was there some concern, especially for the young children, Sydney and Justin, of coming into that atmosphere?
Definitely so. We did not want them there in that situation. No, they would have been too traumatized for it.
Now, you mentioned that very briefly you went to the bathroom when you were upstairs, and you went to what was then Nicole's bathroom.
Correct.
That's right at the entrance coming into the bedroom?
That's right.
How long were you gone during that break?
How long was that gone?
Approximately, was it?
Maybe a minute.
And during that period of time when you left, was Mr. Shipp there?
No,
When you returned, was he there?
no,
When your husband came up and you were with your husband, was Mr. Shipp there?
no.
Are you absolutely certain that you can tell this jury that at no time other than regarding unplugging the telephone, was there any private conversation between Mr. Shipp and your brother?
I'm absolutely sure.
Thank you.
Yes, I am.
Thank you. Nothing further, and thank you so much for coming today.
Ms. Clark?
Thank you, Your Honor. Nothing further.
All right, Ms. Baker, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, next defense witness. Mr. Cochran?
Thank you, Your Honor. We'll next call Mr. Jack McKay, who's present. The court pleases. Mr. McKay, sir.
All right, good morning, sir. Would you face the court reporter? Excuse me, the clerk?
Raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you may give in the testimony before this court should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please have a seat for witness stand and state and spell your first and last name to the record.
This is Jack McKay, Jack-MC, capital Kay.
All right, Mr. McKay, would you just set that cup off to the side there, please? Thank you. Mr. Cochran?
Thank you very kindly, Your Honor. Good morning, Mr. McKay.
Good morning.
Mr. McKay, sir, how are you employed, sir?
I'm the Chief Financial Officer for the American Psychological Association.
And did you occupy that position back in the month of June of 1994?
Yes, I did.
And on that date, did you have occasion to see Mr. OJ Simpson?
Yes, sir, I did.
And that's Mr. Simpson seated to my left here, to my far left?
It is.
And where did you have occasion to see Mr. Simpson on June 8th, 1994?
Thank you. We were participating in a corporate golf tournament in Sterling, Virginia.
All right, back in Virginia?
Yes,
And do you remember the name of the course?
it was Lansdowne Conference Center.
And when you say we were participating, was the organization of which you are the chief financial officer a participant in this particular tournament?
Yes,
And you were playing there that day?
yes, I was.
That was a Wednesday, was it not?
I believe so.
Would you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what time on that date, June 8th, did you see Mr. Simpson?
One of my calling cards is being late, so I was naturally late for this golf tournament. I got there a little before 12:15, I believe, for a 12:30 starting time, and got up to the first tee, and Mr. Simpson and two other players were there, and we had a picture-taking exercise, and then we went off at 12:30.
All right, so you had what they call a 12:30 tee time?
Yes.
All right, and had you ever played golf before with Mr. Simpson?
No.
And you had occasion then to tee off with him at or about 12:30. And then for how long after that did you play golf with Mr. Simpson?
Because we were the last foursome that went off, Mr. Simpson played, I believe, 4 or 5 holes with us in our foursome. Then he left in his own cart and played a hole or two with other foursomes, and then came back and played a few more holes with us on the back 9. So I guess collectively I was with him maybe an hour and a half, an hour and 45 minutes.
And during the course of this tournament, who was one of the sponsors of this tournament, if you know, that provided Mr. Simpson?
You mean the corporation that sponsored the tournament?
Yes, the corporation.
Was Hertz Rent-A-Car.
All right. And so you mentioned that Mr. Simpson went off in his own cart. Did he have some kind of a golf cart he was using that day?
Yes, he did.
And during the time that you played with Mr. Simpson, did you ever have occasion to have a conversation with him at all? Just
Yes.
to answer that yes or no. At any time during the conversation, did you ever have occasion to discuss with him the physical condition of his knees?
On one occasion, he had a slight limp, and I just,
Overall, he can testify to his observations.
Right. Thank you. You saw Mr. Simpson have a limp, did you not?
yes, when he walked toward the ball.
All right. And when you saw this, did you have an occasion to discuss with him the condition of his knees? You can answer that yes or no.
Yes, briefly.
And did the two of you then discuss the subject matter of Mr. Simpson's knees and any problems he might be having with those knees? The subject matter.
Did you discuss that?
Discuss that.
McKay, did you?
Very briefly.
All right.
All right, thank you. And how would you characterize Mr. Simpson's demeanor during the time that you had occasion to play golf with him, these 4 or 5 holes at first and then the time afterwards?
He was very cordial, friendly, very willing to shake hands, sign autographs, have pictures taken. Very much different, I would say, than other celebrities that I've had an occasion to play golf with. He was a regular person that I was very comfortable with, and everybody else was.
Now, you've obviously had occasion to play golf with other so-called celebrities, is that correct?
Yes, I have.
And without mentioning their names, you found the demeanor and comportment of... I mean, that's the question.
Sounds leading.
Well, I didn't finish it, but let me see if I can change it around so it won't be leading. All right. You played with other celebrities, have you not?
Yes.
All right. And how did Mr. Simpson's demeanor differ from those other celebrities you played with?
Overall.
You may answer.
I would say that he appeared to be much more friendly than any that I've ever played with before. He was very willing to talk to you about anything. He did not put on any airs. He was just a very friendly person to be around.
All right, and you enjoyed your time, is that correct?
Yes, I did.
And you mentioned the fact that you'd had a photograph taken with Mr. Simpson, and was there a foursome including Simpson when you all played?
Yes, there was.
And did you provide me with a photograph that was taken on that date of June 8, 1994, that includes the participants in your particular foursome?
Yes, I did.
All right, and is the photograph a fair and accurate portrayal? Is that a fair and accurate portrayal of the way the four of you appeared on that date, June 8th, 1994?
Yes, it was.
I'll mark this, Your Honor, as the defendant's next exhibit.
1229.
1229, Your Honor.
Yes.
I'll place the 1229 on the upper right rear. And I'll place this photograph before Mr. McKay and ask, Mr. McKay, is that a photograph that you brought to California, provided me with?
Yes, it is.
And is that photograph a fair and accurate portrayal of the way the four of you looked back on June 8th, 1994?
Exactly.
And where was that photograph taken?
It was taken on the number 1 tee at Lansdowne Conference Center in Virginia.
And then the number 1 tee is before you teed off to start playing golf. Is that right?
That's right.
All right. And let's see who's depicted. Perhaps so everybody can see if I put in my elbow here.
You may.
So you see, there's a monitor right before you start. And I think you'll be able to look at the monitor and the jurors will be able to see it also. Referring to it. Now, in looking at this photograph, you told us this is a fair and accurate portrayal of the foursome just prior to the first tee. The gentleman on the left of the photograph, that's you, is it not?
I think so.
Okay, and as we do recognize Mr. Simpson next to you, and then who's the man to Mr. Simpson's left?
He is a director of some kind from the AARP organization of American Association of Retired People.
All right, and he was playing in this.
He was one of the other organizations that were invited.
All right, and the man to the representative AARP's left?
He is a regional vice president of Hertz, as far as I was told. I don't know the man, but that's how he was introduced.
And that's the first time you'd ever played with him also, is that correct?
Yes.
All right. So now, altogether, you spent about how much time with Mr. Simpson on that date, that June 8th date?
I would say an hour and a half to hour and 45 minutes, something like that.
And during that period of time, the demeanor that you've described for us, did it ever change at any time?
Not at all.
And did he sign some autographs for you also?
Yes, he did.
And family members?
He signed an autograph for my daughter, a visor.
I have nothing further for Mr. McKay at this point, Your Honor.
All right. Ms. Clark?
All right, you're aware, sir, that the defendant is a spokesperson for Hertz Corporation, correct?
I assume he is. He was there for that purpose.
All right, and that he gets paid to enhance the company image, correct?
I don't know that.
What would you think a spokesperson would do, sir?
Well, yeah, that's argumentative.
Sustain. Rephrase the question, please.
Do you expect a spokesperson for a company to try and portray a good image on behalf of that company?
If they expect to keep the job, I would think they would.
Certainly. And Mr. Simpson is a spokesperson for Hertz, correct?
I believe so.
You've met other celebrities, is that right?
That's right.
And on the occasions that you've met other celebrities, have they been spokespeople as well for other corporations?
Most of the time, they were.
On the occasion that you were with Mr. Simpson on June the 8th, was there press there?
No.
There were photographers there?
Yes.
There were media people there?
Not to my knowledge, there weren't.
There were publicity agents there for Hertz?
I don't know.
Who were the photographers there, Mr. McKay?
As far as I know, the photographer was hired by Hertz to take pictures to give to the participants as souvenirs from the occasion.
And the photographer followed everyone around, did they?
They were on the course at different times.
And what does your company have to do with the Hertz Corporation?
Our company is one of the companies that provides benefits to our members, special discounts through various car rental companies, hotels, and whatnot. So we just sponsor that event through our membership and get special discounts from Hertz, Avis, and other companies.
And you patronize Hertz, correct?
Do I?
Not you personally, your company.
It's a benefit of membership.
That means that you use the services of Hertz Corporation, is that right?
Our members are supposed to. They have the opportunity to.
And as a customer of Hertz, Hertz Corporation naturally would want to be in your good favor, correct?
I would think they wouldn't want to lose the account.
And Mr. Simpson is a spokesperson for Hertz. That's right?
He was.
Now, you spoke to the defense on June the 14th of 1995, is that right? You spoke to a defense investigator on June 14th, 1995?
I believe that's the right date.
Is that the only time you ever spoke to a defense investigator?
Until I came out here, I believe that was the only time.
Prior to that time, did you speak to any of the lawyers for Mr. Simpson?
I don't think so. I think I was called some time ago by an investigator, and then I spoke to Mr. Bailey briefly.
And when was that you spoke to Mr. Bailey?
I really don't know. Maybe a month or two ago, just seeing if I would testify if
And that-
asked.
Okay, and that was before June the 14th, correct?
Yes.
Did Mr. Bailey take any notes or tape your statement at the time he spoke to you?
No.
And after you spoke to Mr. Bailey, who else did you talk to?
An attorney from Mr. Cochran's organization. I think I can't remember his name.
Mr. Douglas?
No.
Someone else?
Yes.
And do you speak to him on the phone or in person?
On the phone.
How long did you speak to him for?
Probably 30 minutes, I suppose.
And did you discuss with him the subject matter of your testimony here in court?
I answered questions.
And after that point, who else did you talk to?
No one until I got out here.
At what point then, you spoke to Mr. Bailey, you spoke to someone, a lawyer from Mr. Cochran's office, and was it after that that you spoke to a defense investigator on June the 14th?
Sure. Why don't you confer with Mr. Cochran for a moment? Sure.
And you indicated your contact with Mr. Bailey was back about a month or so ago, is that correct?
That's the best of my recollection. I've lost track of time. It's been a while, but
And was that the first contact you had with any member of the defense team in this case?
Let me try to give you the scenario here that
Did you answer my
occurred.
question? Was that the first contact you had with any member of the defense team in this case?
The answer was non-responsive.
Could you ask the question again?
Was that the first contact you had with any member of the defense team in this case?
I don't know whether someone's a member of the defense team.
Any witness or lawyer for the defense in this case? Was that your first contact, Mr. Bailey, about a month ago? Or was there an earlier contact by someone else who is involved with the defense case?
I have spoken to someone else other than on this defense team about this case.
Isn't it true that you spoke to a psychologist by the name of Lenore Walker in February of this year?
That's correct.
A witness scheduled to testify in this case?
I don't know whether she's scheduled to testify, but I talked with her.
And you are CFO. What's CFO?
Chief Financial Officer.
That's not a doctor, is it?
No, it is not.
It's not a psychiatrist, is it?
No, it is not.
As Chief Financial Officer, you have to do with the finances of the company, correct?
Correct.
Now, on the occasion of June the 8th, 1994, you shook hands with the defendant, is that right?
That's correct.
You got his autograph, is that correct?
Right.
See any cut on his left finger?
No.
See any cuts on his hand at all?
No.
You spoke to a lawyer on June the 14th of 1995 at some length, is that correct?
I think he was an investigator.
Let me ask you that. Did you speak to somebody on June the 14th, 1995 for about half an hour to an hour?
Yes.
And do you know if that was a lawyer or an investigator?
Overruled.
I believe he was a lawyer.
Have you had occasion to review that statement since you've been out here?
Yes.
I'm not going to ask you right now to look at that statement, sir, and tell me where in this statement you indicate that you saw Mr. Simpson walk with a limp on June the 8th, 1994.
Object to form of that. The tone, he didn't say in the statement he did it. He said it's a conversation.
Sustained. It's a speaking objection, Mr. Cochran. Be seated. Answer the question.
That's not in the statement.
Nowhere in the statement, is it?
No.
June the 8th is the only time that you ever had any contact with Mr. Simpson, is that right?
That's right.
And you indicate in this statement that based on that one contact for that one day in your life, that you found him to be absolutely loose, friendly, down to earth, affable, correct?
That's correct.
And how many hours of that day did you spend with him on June the 8th, 1994?
About an hour and a half to an hour and 45 minutes would be my estimate.
And before that hour and a half to 2 hours that you saw him, you don't know what he was looking like or how he acted, correct?
That's correct.
And after the 2 hours you spent with him, you don't know what he looked like, do you? I'm sorry, you don't know what his mood was, do you?
I know what his mood was until he left at 6 o'clock to catch a plane.
And after that point, you do not know, do you?
Not after that point, no.
And you did not see him on June the 9th of 1994, correct?
Correct.
The 10th,
Nope.
the 11th,
Nope.
the 12th?
Nope.
He did not discuss his relationship with any of the women in his life with you on June the 8th, 1994, did he?
Objection. No.
Sustained.
Well, let me ask you this, sir. Do you? You did not see his left hand on June the 12th, did you?
Object.
Overruled. Can you answer the question?
Yes, I did.
On June the 12th?
Oh, pardon me. No, I only saw him on June the 8th.
If someone was planning to commit murder, sir, would you expect him to come to you if he wanted to get away with it and grumble about the person he wanted to kill?
Sustained.
Okay, do you know how someone would act?
Excuse me, hold on. Jury is to disregard the implication of that question.
Do you think you know how someone's going to act before they commit a crime?
Sustained. Move on, counsel.
I have nothing further.
Mr. Cochran.
Okay, sir. You have flown out here to testify today for this jury, is that correct?
Yes.
Where do you live, sir?
Objection irrelevant.
Overruled.
Where do you live, sir?
Alexandria, Virginia.
All right, and you flew out pursuant to subpoena to testify, is that correct?
Correct.
And you spoke briefly with Mr. Bailey sometime about a month ago, is that correct?
Very briefly.
All right. And was that a phone conversation?
Yes, it was.
All right. And then thereafter, you spoke to a lawyer from my office in Washington, D.C., did you not?
That's correct.
Do you remember the name? My partner, Ralph Lotkin, is that who you spoke with?
Lotkin, that's the one.
And you talked to him for about 30 minutes on the phone, is that correct?
Correct.
And you responded to his questions, is that correct? Well, let me
Sustained.
see if I can understand it. How did the conversation go with Mr. Lotkin? Did you tell him stuff, or did he ask you questions, or what?
He simply asked questions, and I answered the questions that he asked.
All right, and that was all that happened, is that right?
That was all.
Now, with regard to Dr. Lenore Walker, was she in your office sometime during the early part of 1995?
Yes.
And do you know what month that was?
I believe it was February.
All right, February of 95. And is she a member of the organization of which you are the chief financial officer?
Yes, she is.
And at that time when she was in your office, did she have occasion to see one of these pictures that we have here, the pictures of Mr. Simpson in your golfing group?
Yes, she did.
And did you have a brief conversation at that point?
Yes.
All right. Now, with regard to the dates involved, you saw Mr. Simpson only on June 8th, isn't that correct?
That's correct.
You didn't see Mr. Simpson on the 9th or the 10th or the 11th, did you?
No, sir.
Neither did you see him on the 5th, 6th, or 7th, did you?
No, sir.
You came and told us about the date you saw him on June 8th, right?
That's correct.
Overruled.
And when Mr. Simpson left you on June 8th to go to Dulles Airport, how was his mood at that time?
It was the same that it had been the entire day.
And what was that mood?
It was a very friendly, cordial, handshaking, telling jokes kind of behavior.
And with regard to other celebrities, you were asked a question about celebrities always trying to be nice. Have you played with celebrities who weren't nice?
Yes.
And you didn't enjoy their presence?
Not particularly.
Thank you very kindly. Thank you very much for coming today, too.
Thank you.
Ms. Clark.
Yes, can I see the photograph, please? Can you see the defendant's left hand in this photograph, sir? I'm referring to defense number,
29.
thank you.
Portion of it, yes.
Can you see that close, perhaps, folks in?
Why don't we zoom in?
Maybe we should take a photograph of them. Right?
Thank you. You see the defendant's left hand?
Yes.
You see any cuts on it?
No.
You all posed together for that photograph, did you not?
Yes.
And that was a Hertz photographer that took the picture, is that correct?
Someone hired by Hertz, I believe.
And with respect to the statement that you gave to the attorney, I'm going to direct your attention to page 2 and point out the second paragraph that consists of one line. In that paragraph, did you indicate, sir, that the defendant did not complain of any physical limitations on June the 8th, 1994?
That's correct.
Two other questions. First of all, regarding this picture, do you notice how
Swollen Mr. Simpson's middle finger looks. You see his knuckle up there? You see that?
Objection, leading.
Let me
Sustained.
point it out for you.
It's bleeding.
Okay, let me ask you. Do you notice anything unusual about that middle finger of Mr. Simpson's there? Can you see that?
I can't, I wouldn't have seen it before, so I wouldn't know whether it's normal or not. I mean, that's the first time I've seen that.
This picture was the way, however, the way it looked back on June 8th, though, isn't it?
Yes, right.
All right. And with regard to Mr. Simpson complaining, as I understood your testimony, you noticed Mr. Simpson limping, and you asked him a question about that limping. Isn't that correct?
Not in this written testimony, that question was never asked. You asked me that question here today.
Sure. But what on that particular date, on June 8th, you noticed him limping as he's walking toward his ball, right?
Right,
All right. That's something you saw with your own eyes, isn't that right?
that's right.
Oh,
And then you then commented or talked to Mr. Simpson about why he was limping. Is that
this
right?
is leading.
All right. All right. After you saw Mr. Simpson limping toward his ball, what did you do at that point? Did you ask him a question?
We just said, we joked about old football injuries. Just said that's old football injuries, knee injuries. That was very, very brief. I mean, it was like in a joking way. We really didn't discuss it at all.
All right. Thank you very kindly, sir.
Ms. Clark?
But in your statement, sir, you explicitly said Mr. Simpson did not complain of any physical limitations and did not indicate whether he was taking any medication and did not do so in Mr. McKay's presence, correct?
He did not complain.
Mr. McKay, excuse me?
Has the Metro made it down to Alexandria yet?
I hope so.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. McKay.
Thank you.
All right, next witness.
Very much, Your Honor. If the court pleases, we call Mr. Dan Mandel.
All right, Mr. Mandel, would you come forward, please? No?
No.
Wrong person.
No. Last witness. Already.
I might have to give you an extended lunch hour to recuperate from all this.
I appreciate that, Aaron. Promise to make it up in the end.
All right, are you Mr. Mandel? All right, good morning, sir. Would you stand over here by the podium and face the clerk, please? Face the clerk.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you may give in the class not convened before this court should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please have a seat on the witness stand and state and spell your first and last name straight for the record.
Just pull the microphone forward, please.
Danny Mandel, DANNYMANDEL.
Good morning, Mr. Mandel, and thank you for coming.
Morning.
You a little nervous?
Definitely.
Have you ever had the occasion to testify before?
No, I have not.
Would you briefly tell the jury what your education and background consist of?
I have a BA from UCLA. I graduated in 1990. And currently I work at Sony Pictures in television finance.
And your BA is in what?
Mr. Mandel, would you just pull the microphone closer to you, please? All right.
Your Bachelor of Arts degree is in what field?
It's in sociology.
And you work at Sony Pictures in what capacity?
In finance and accounting?
And are you planning on returning to school?
Yes, I am.
And when and where are you planning to return to school?
I'm going back this fall for an MBA, most likely at USC.
That's a master's degree
Correct.
in business administration?
Correct.
Have you been accepted to that school?
I have.
I want to draw your attention and ask you to tell the jury if anything unusual happened to you on June the 12th, and if there's any reason to recall that date of 1994.
Well, just that I was in this, at Matsaluna that evening, and then happened to walk by Nicole Simpson's house that evening.
So you have, obviously, you're aware of what's been going on in the trial of Mr. OJ Simpson,
Yes, I am.
and you're aware that that date has some significance,
Yes, I am.
and that that restaurant has some significance.
Yes.
Now, and because of that, did it cause you to focus on that date and to remember what took place?
Yes, it has.
Would you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury where you were just prior to going to Mezzaluna Restaurant?
I was on a first date, and I picked up Ellen Aronson in her apartment.
And where did Ellen Aronson live?
She lives on Darlington in Brentwood.
And had this date been arranged by a mutual acquaintance?
Yes, it has.
And who arranged that?
This was a doctor.
So
We share the same doctor.
Where was Miss Aronson's apartment?
It's on Darlington.
And do you know where Darlington is in relationship to a location that did you at some point become aware of where Nicole Brown Simpson lived?
Yes, I did.
Where in relationship to Nicole's condominium was Miss Aronson's apartment?
It's approximately 1 block south and 1 block east.
What time did you arrive at Miss Aronson's apartment?
At a little past 8 o'clock
In the evening?
in the evening.
And did you leave there at some point in time?
Yeah, shortly thereafter.
Where did you go upon leaving the apartment?
We walked to the restaurant.
How did you get to Miss Aronson's apartment?
I drove.
And you decided, however, to walk from that apartment to Mezzaluna?
Correct.
Do you remember the route you took going to Mezzaluna?
Generally, yes.
Would you kindly tell the jury the route you took?
We left her apartment and went east on Darlington. And actually, I don't know the cross section, the name of the street right there. I can't be certain. But then we crossed over to Gorham and walked east till we got to, we entered what would be the back door of the Mezzaluna restaurant.
Had you been to the Mezzaluna restaurant before?
Yes, I had.
And this is the Mezzaluna restaurant in Brentwood?
Correct.
The same location that's been mentioned in this case, to your
Correct.
knowledge? Your Honor, may I mark an exhibit? Let me make sure that there's just a map of the area that might help Mr. Mandel in his testimony. Mr. Clark, defense 1230.
All right, map of the area, defense 1230. Give that back to Mr. Shapiro so we can proceed,
Can we put this on the elbow, Your Honor, with the clerk's permission?
please.
Thank you. You have a little monitor to your right, if you'll kindly look there. Do you see on the map the area that you've just described to the jury? Do we have another copy of the map?
It's not very easy to read even on the phone.
Another copy.
It's not. All right.
Can you see that? Can you see Darlington up there?
Yeah, I do see Darlington.
And is that the general area where you picked up Miss Aronson?
On Darlington, correct?
Okay, and do you know, can you see from the map what street you came up on after you passed Arlington?
While walking to the restaurant, you're saying?
Yes.
My orientation here is Montana, Gorham, Darlington. Can you just point out to me which is Bundy? I can't tell which is east and west.
All right, let's, you know what, let's.
I mean, I can't read the names of the streets
That's
that are
fine.
here.
That's fine. Let's just take the photograph down, Your Honor. The map down. You proceeded to go to the Mezzaluna restaurant.
Correct.
How long did it take you approximately to get there?
To walk to the restaurant?
Yes.
I'd say 10, probably 15 minutes.
And had you made reservations at the restaurant?
No, we had not.
Did you have to wait for a period of time?
No.
Do you recall approximately how quickly you were seated?
We were seated just as we walked in.
And did you have dinner at the restaurant?
Yes, we did.
Do you recall what you ate?
I had a pasta.
And do you recall what your date had?
I would not specifically. I believe she had a pasta as well.
Did you have any alcohol to drink?
No, I didn't.
What about your date? Did she have any alcohol?
No.
Do you know what time you left the restaurant?
I would approximate 10:15 or so.
Have you ever seen any records of when the check was presented to you?
Yes, I have.
And did you review that record?
Yes, I did.
And what did that record indicate as to the time you left the restaurant?
The timestamp was 8:55.
Sustained. Curious to disregard. Foundation counsel.
Yes. We'll get a copy of that in a minute. What time did you leave the restaurant?
Approximately 10:15.
And did you refresh your memory in some way to get that time?
Yes, I did.
And how did you refresh your memory?
Well, when I looked at the credit card receipt and the timestamp on it.
No, that's what he used to, no, that's not hearsay.
Go ahead, you may complete your
No,
answer.
that's what he looked at to refresh his recollection.
You looked
That's-
at a credit card receipt to
That's the
refresh
end of
your
the
memory.
answer.
Yes.
Have you seen that credit card receipt subsequently?
Yes, I have.
When have you seen it last?
It's been many months since I last saw it.
Where did you see it last?
Probably back in January.
When you left the restaurant, do you recall which route you took going home? Did you take the same route you took going to the restaurant?
No, we didn't.
Which route did you take going home?
Again, we left from Metzaluna's back door, which is on Gorham, and we walked Gorham west onto Bundy, and continued Bundy until Darlington.
At some point in time, did you become aware of the precise location of Nicole Brown Simpson's condominium?
Yes.
And have you seen photographs of that?
Yes.
Have you been by there?
Yes.
Do you recall whether or not you walked by that location on June the 12th in the evening with your date, Miss Aronson?
Yes.
Is there any question that you walked by that area?
No.
When you walked by that area, did you notice anything unusual?
No.
Did you hear anything unusual?
No.
Did you hear any barking dogs?
None.
Your Honor, we'd like to put on the Elmo. I think this should, I don't know if you've been blocking this picture or not.
Yes.
I believe we have. Some people are having a little difficulty hearing you. Your Honor, may we request,
Mr. Mayor, I would just pull it a little closer here. There we go.
thank
Okay.
you. Feel free to speak up.
Okay.
All right, now photography of this item.
I want you to,
Monitor, so
I want you to look at the monitor now, and can you describe to the jury whether or not that's a location that you have seen before?
Yes, it is.
And what location is that?
That's 875 Bundy.
When you walked by that location on the 12th, did you see any blood in the area that's depicted in the photograph?
No, I did not.
Did you see the shape or silhouette of the body of a person when you walked by?
No, I
And
did not.
you've told us you heard no barking dogs?
Correct.
Do you have any way of relating to this jury what time you walked by that condominium?
Yes.
And how can you relate what time it was?
Well, both by knowing the credit card time and having an approximation of how long I sat before I left. And then also when I was on Darlington, a few houses down from Ellen's apartment, I happened to glance at my watch, and
What time was it when you glanced at your watch?
it was at the bottom of the hour, approximately 10:30. It could be a minute or two before or after.
And how far was that location from 875 South Bundy when you looked at your watch?
In time, it's probably about 3-minute walk, 4-minute walk.
Have you walked that since that night?
Yes, I have.
And were you able to mark the amount of time it took?
Yes, I did.
And is that how you've come up with this estimate?
Yeah.
Was there anything unusual whatsoever at approximately 10:30 on June the 12th that you recall when you walked by the condominium of Nicole Brown Simpson?
No.
May I just have a moment, Your Honor?
Mr. Shapiro, which exhibit was that you used on the Elmo?
That's People's 42, Your Honor, for the record.
All right.
You've discussed the areas of your testimony with the jury with me prior to your testimony. Is that correct?
With the jury?
What you've talked to today, did you
Correct.
discuss that with me?
Okay. Yes.
And that was a couple weeks ago?
Yes.
Did you also have the opportunity of talking to anybody from the district attorney's office?
Yes, I did.
With whom did you talk to at the district attorney's office?
With Marsha Clark and with Bill Hodgman.
And did you tell them what you have told the jury here?
Yes, I did.
Your Honor, we would, with the court's permission, like to show a diagram of the area. It's on its way, and perhaps we might want to ask the court.
I think we already have several diagrams of, and if you recollect, part of the crime scene view with the jury was to give them the relationship of the Mezzaluna restaurant and its proximity to the Bundy address. Robertson can assist us with this.
Thank you. We would appreciate that. Did you tell the members of the district attorney's office about the receipt from the Mezzaluna restaurant?
Yes, I did.
And you tell them how you were able to gauge the time?
Yes, I did.
Did you see any footprints that looked like bloody paw prints in the area as you were walking on 875 South Bundy?
No, I didn't.
Do you recall how long you spent with members of the district attorney's office?
I was in the office probably approximately an hour.
And do you recall when you talked to them?
What month?
Yes.
Back in, I believe it was September.
Of 1994?
Yes.
May I just have a moment, Your Honor, please?
ETA for your exhibit.
Both of you are within 5 minutes.
Their board at our board.
All right, then, Mr. Shapiro, how about if we start with the cross-examination? I'll allow you to reopen as to the diagram.
Thank you very much, Ross.
All right, Ms. Clark?
Now, Mr. Mandel, your first statement actually, your first belief was actually that you were at the location of 875 South Bundy at about 11 o'clock, correct?
No,
Or was that Ms. Aronson's first belief?
I don't know.
Do you recall that she spoke to the police before you did?
Yes,
And it was after she spoke to the police that they contacted you?
correct.
And initially, when you spoke to the police, you believed that you had walked back from the Mezzaluna by a different route than you've explained to us today, correct?
No,
You don't recall telling me back in September of 1994 that you initially thought you had walked out on Gorham and gone down Westgate. Do you recall telling me that, sir, back in September of 94?
no, I pointed out on the map the direction, but I couldn't recall the street names. And I told you I would call you when I got home, which I did.
But you initially told me also, sir, did you not, that you thought you had taken a different route and you wanted to change that statement. Don't you recall telling me that?
No,
But if you had walked down Westgate, you would never have come anywhere near South Bundy, correct?
I'm not sure where Westgate and South Bundy
We're
intersect.
going to have a chart for you and you could show the jury. If you had taken that Westgate route home, you would never have gone on to Bundy at all, correct?
As I said, I don't know where they intersect.
All right, the route that you took to go to Mezzaluna, took you down Darlington and then up Westgate. Is that right? And actually, let me put it more easily before I get the chart. The route you took to the Mezzaluna did not take you on Bundy. Is that right?
That's correct.
And that was a very direct path from her apartment to the Mezzaluna. Is that correct?
Fairly direct, yes.
And is it your testimony, sir, at this time, that when you walked down Bundy, you walked on the west side of Bundy?
Yes,
And that would mean that you'd have to not only cross Bundy once, going from the Mezzaluna, going from the east side of the Bundy to west, but then you'd have to cross Bundy back again, going from west to east, to go back to her apartment. Is that right?
that is correct.
And Bundy is a curving street, is it not, sir?
It is.
And the intersection of Gorham and Bundy is uncontrolled for Bundy. It's only a stop sign for Gorham. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And it was very dark there that night, wasn't it?
Moderately dark.
Moderately dark?
I don't know how you gauge it. It was nighttime.
All right, you identified that photograph for us here today as 875 South Bundy, didn't you?
Yes.
Were you noticing all the addresses of the places you were walking past that night?
No, I didn't.
As you walked down the street on Bundy, were you looking up each pathway to see what was at the end of each pathway to each house?
No, I was not.
You were talking to Ms. Aronson, is that correct?
Yes.
And that was your first date with her, is that correct?
Yes.
And you were looking, you were not looking to see what the details of each house you were passing was, correct?
Correct.
Were you looking to see if there was any blood on any walkway, sir?
No.
And as a matter of fact, you had to cross from the west side to the east side of Bundy, isn't that right? To go back to her apartment?
Yes.
And you can tell us, can you tell us for sure right now, at what point on Bundy you crossed from the west side to the east side?
Yes.
And how can you do that, sir?
Based on my recollection?
Let me ask you something. Was that the first blind date you've ever had?
No.
You've had others since then, is that right?
Probably, yes.
Mm-hmm. You ever taken a walk with any of those blind dates, sir?
Probably not.
Never took a walk with another blind date?
Not that I recall, no.
Ever taken a walk with a woman before Ms. Aronson?
Yes.
How about since?
Yes.
Can you trace the route of each woman you walked with?
Specifically, yes. If I guess we start talking individually and I recall the date, I could.
Yeah.
Ms. Ms. Clark, let the professionals do that.
No. Thank you, John. All right, for the record, we've put up people's 26.
Don't give up your day job.
All right, I'm showing you people's 26, sir. You see where that yellow dot is on that chart?
Yes, I do.
And does that yellow dot pretty much accurately describe the location of the mezzaluna?
Yes, it does.
Is that right?
Yes.
And can you tell us where in relation to Dorothy Darlington would be?
It's this next block.
1 block south, is that right?
South. Yes.
Okay. Now, can you show us approximately on that chart? Actually, you know what? Let's use the Elmo. You can sit right there. Look at your monitor.
Oh, please.
I'm going to show you that chart on the monitor. And Mr. Fairtlow, if you could move that just a little bit up so that we get more of the south area. Okay, there we go. Thank you. If you would, sir, look at this chart now. I'm going to ask you to direct the arrow, make it red. There you go. The cross to the location approximately of Ms. Aronson's apartment.
So bring it down a little more onto Darlington, which is the block south of Dorothy, and a bit closer towards Bundy. I mean, still on Darlington, but bring it approximately there.
There?
Yeah.
Okay, did you mark that? Thank you. All right. Now, you stated you got there a little after 8 o'clock?
To Metzaluna?
No, to her apartment.
I mean, yes, to her apartment. Yes.
And how many minutes after 8 o'clock did you get there?
I think about 5 minutes after 8.
Did you look at your watch?
No,
That's an estimate, is that right?
it is.
Okay. And then you talked to her a little bit in her apartment, is that right?
Yes.
And do you know exactly how many minutes you spoke to her in her apartment?
Not exactly, no.
Did you look at your watch when you left?
No, I did not.
But you left at some point after 5 minutes after 8 approximately, correct?
Correct.
So your estimate is that at some time after 8 o'clock you left her apartment, is that right?
Yes.
You don't know exactly when, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. And when you walked, I would like for you now to direct the arrow and show the jury what route you took to the mezzaluna that night when you left Ms. Aronson's apartment.
Okay. I don't recall specifically. All I know is that we took Darlington going east, so that direction, and
Okay. Can you create a line down?
and I'm not certain. I believe that we took a left there to Gorham, and then a right towards Metzaluna.
You're not sure?
No, I'm not sure on the way there.
You're not sure what route you took on the way there, is that right?
That is correct.
You think you took a left at the street that is the intersection that the arrow's at right now, which would be Westgate?
Yes, I do.
You're not sure.
Not on my way there, no.
Could have been the next street up that you took a left at, is that correct?
That's possible.
So you're guessing, is that right?
Yes, it is.
Okay, go ahead and make a left there. Could you show the dot? Left with a dotted line at this intersection. There you go. Now, are you sure that you went all the way on Westgate there? Or could you have made another right at Dorothy and then maybe another left and a right to go up to the restaurant?
As I said, going to the restaurant, I don't recall.
You don't recall.
Ellen led us there.
So you think you might have gone this way, you're not sure, on the way to.
Correct.
All right. But if you did turn left at Westgate, you would have turned again right hand on Gorham, correct?
That's correct.
Now, Ms. Aronson's apartment, is it on the north or the south side of Darlington?
On the north?
And so if you take that route, you can walk on the same side of the street, crossing only at the intersection of, what is that? Gorham and Westgate in order to get to the Mezzaluna. Is that right?
That's correct.
And you never have to cross Bundy at all, correct?
Correct.
So you left Ms. Aronson's apartment, you estimate, at some point after 8 o'clock.
Correct.
And it took you how long to walk to the Mezzaluna taking that direct route?
I'd say approximately 10, maybe 15 minutes.
Were you looking at your watch?
No.
You didn't time that, did you?
No.
You're just estimating for this jury, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
And you got to the Mezzaluna, you had dinner, correct?
Correct.
How long exactly did you spend having dinner with Ms. Aronson?
I can't say exactly.
You don't know because you weren't looking at your watch, is that right?
That's correct.
You're on a date.
Correct.
Okay. And after you finished eating, you left the restaurant, correct?
Yes.
You look at your watch at the time that you left?
No, I did not.
You don't know exactly what time you left, is that right?
That's correct.
You said that you paid your bill with a credit card, correct?
Correct.
And that after you paid, you stayed in the restaurant for some period of time.
Yes.
You did not look at your watch to see how long you spent in the restaurant after you paid the bill.
Correct.
A woman waited on you, is that right?
Yes, you did.
You recall what she looked like?
I recall that she was attractive, darker skin.
Ponytail? Her hair was in a ponytail?
I don't recall.
Do you know her name?
No.
You've been watching this trial, is that right?
Yes, here and there.
Do you recall seeing the people that testified that were working at the Mezzaluna that night?
No, not specifically.
You recall seeing a waitress by the name of Tia Gavin testify?
No.
Does that name ring a bell?
No, it doesn't.
So you paid the bill, and at some point after you paid the bill, you're not sure how long you and Ms. Aronson left, correct?
Correct.
And when you left, you state that you walked out the back door of the Mezzaluna?
Yes.
Can you describe the back door of the Mezzaluna that you say you walked out of?
There's a little patio. I believe there's a little zigzag to go down to the street.
Okay. And you could just walk out the door? You didn't have to step over any railing or fence or anything?
Actually, I think I did hop over a railing.
And for what reason did you take the back door?
It's just closer towards the direction that we were going.
Now, after you left, you went back to the restaurant to look for your keys, isn't that right?
Yeah, momentarily after.
And when you went back into the restaurant, there was no one else there, isn't that right?
No other
No other
patron?
customers.
It was very empty. There may have been one other table.
You recall telling myself and Mr. Hodgman back in September of 1994 that when you went back to the restaurant to look for your keys, you saw no other person there?
That sounds familiar, yes?
And who did you speak to about looking for your keys when you went back into the restaurant?
Nobody.
You just looked?
They were just on my seat. I had them between my legs when I was sitting there.
Okay, so you went back into the restaurant, retrieved your keys, and then went back out again, correct?
Yes.
And did you look to see how long it took you between the time you left the restaurant, went back in to get your keys, and went back out again?
No, I did not.
So when you actually left the restaurant for the last time, you do not know what time it was, is that correct?
That's correct.
And Ms. Aronson waited outside the restaurant for you when you did that?
Yes.
And then she and you walked out of the restaurant, is that right?
Yes.
Now look at the chart, if you will, People's 26. Can you indicate to us what route you took to leave the Mezzaluna?
All right, Ms. Clark, before we start on that, I think we need to take a break. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take our mid-morning recess. Please remember all my admonitions to you. Mr. Mandel, you may step down. You're ordered to return in 15 minutes. All right? All right, back on the record in the Simpson matter. All right, Deputy McNair, let's have the jurors, please. No, hold on, Mr. Mandel. All right, back on the record. All parties are again present. Jury has rejoined us. Mr. Mandel, would you resume the witness stand, please? And pull the microphone close up to you, please. And Ms. Clark.
Thank you, Your Honor. All right, now, over the break period here, you've had a chance to confer with Mr. Shapiro and the members of the defense team, correct?
Correct?
And you've made an effort to have the receipt from the Mezzaluna sent in here, is that correct?
That's correct?
As a matter of fact, after the events of June the 13th, at some point, you actually wrote a letter to your credit card company to get them to send you a copy of your receipt?
I telephoned them.
And you made that effort to get the receipt because you thought it was important to find out exactly when you'd been at the restaurant?
A police detective from the LAPD asked me to do it.
Okay, and that was after July the 12th, is that right?
Yes,
And July the 12th is when you spoke to the police officer, is that right?
that sounds correct.
You had never spoken to any police officer before that date, is that right?
That's right.
And you watched this preliminary hearing for this case on television at some point, did you not?
I believe I caught a little bit.
And so the first time that you spoke to a police officer on this case was after the preliminary hearing had been completed.
Yes.
And it was at some point after that that you spoke to the defense, is that right?
Yes.
When was the first time you spoke to the defense?
I don't recall what month. It was many, many months later. Perhaps, I don't recall. Maybe January.
Now, after you spoke to the police officer, you wrote or you called into your credit card company to get a copy of your receipt because you did not remember what time you left the Mezzaluna. Isn't that right?
I had an idea, but when I looked at the credit card time, I knew that it couldn't be right, so I called.
And you say you had an idea, you thought it was sometime between 10 and 11. Is that right?
I thought it would be a little bit after 10 when I left.
You did not know exactly when you'd left. Is that right?
Exactly? No,
And you still don't, do you?
not exactly.
And you still don't know exactly when you walked down Bundy. Isn't that right?
Not exactly.
And you still don't know when it was that you crossed Bundy from the west side to the east side, what time it was.
Not exactly.
And you still don't know exactly what time it was when you actually got down to the end of Bundy, to the, strike that. Now, but before you ever spoke to a police officer in this case, you spoke to Ms. Aronson several times about when you left the Mezzaluna and where you walked. Isn't that right?
I think we spoke once or twice.
Now, that blind date, that was the first time you'd ever met her on June the 12th. Is that right?
That's true.
And that was a setup by your doctor, mutual doctor?
Yes.
Has he set you up since?
Attempted.
I'm sorry. Now, did you ever go out on a date with Ms. Aronson again after that night?
No.
So the only occasion you had to speak to her was because of this case, isn't that right?
Yes.
And that's all you talked about was this case, isn't that right?
Just small talk. How you doing?
But the reason that you got in touch with her was to talk about what time you left the Mezzaluna and where you walked when you left the Mezzaluna, isn't that right?
Generally, yes.
And you talked to her at least once, maybe more than that.
Correct.
2 or 3 times, perhaps.
2, perhaps, yes.
And that was before you ever spoke to a police officer on June the 12th, isn't that right? July the 12th, isn't that right?
Yes.
So July the 12th, 1 month after the the date you had with Ms. Aronson on June the 12th, was the first time that you spoke to a police officer, right?
Yes.
And by that time, you'd spoken to Ms. Aronson 2, maybe 3 times about where you walked and when you walked there.
Correct.
And after that time that you spoke to the police officer, you spoke to Ms. Aronson again about this case, did you not?
I don't recall specifically.
You don't recall? Do you recall telling me in September of 1994 that you spoke to her again before coming into the office to see myself and Mr. Hodgman?
No, I don't recall specifically.
You don't recall that?
Not specifically. I don't recall how many times we spoke.
You have spoken, though, with her since July the 12th, correct?
Yes.
And you had a date with her since then?
No.
So the occasion for you to speak to her was about this case and the events that occurred on the night of June the 12th, isn't that right?
Yes.
And how many times have you spoken to her since July the 12th about this case?
I think we've gone over this now 3 times.
No, I'm talking about a different time period, Your Honor. That was before July the 12th, now it's after.
Mr. Mandel?
I remember we spoke on the day of the opening argument, and then I don't think we spoke again since.
You saw her when you came into court today, didn't you?
Well, yeah, since the last week.
Since the last week? Is that yes?
Yes.
How many
Sorry.
times have you seen her in the last week?
I crossed by her one time earlier last week.
In the courthouse?
No,
Where?
in Mr. Cochran's office.
In Mr. Cochran's office? Yes?
Yes.
And did you speak to Mr. Cochran?
Yes, I did.
And when was that?
That was a week ago Monday.
Was that the only time you spoke with Mr. Cochran?
Yes, it was.
And for how long did you speak to him?
Just for, I don't know, maybe 20 minutes.
And did he take any notes or make any report of your statement?
No, I don't think he took any notes.
Did he tape record your statement, if you know?
I don't believe so.
Who else was present when you spoke to him?
Mr. Shapiro, Mr. Douglas, Mr. Bailey.
What about Ms. Aronson?
No,
And you spoke to him for how long? To all of them for how long?
perhaps 20 minutes.
And after you spoke to them, did you see, or before you spoke to them, did you see Ms. Aronson at the office?
Yes, I did.
And where was she?
She was leaving.
And did you speak to her briefly before she left?
Just, hi, how are you?
And did you see her again after that point?
Not until this morning.
And you saw her outside here in the court building?
Yes, I did.
And did you talk to her?
Again, just small talk. Hi, how you doing?
And you've spoken to Mr. Shapiro this morning before you began your testimony?
Not before I began, no.
But at the break during your testimony, correct?
Yes.
Now, sir, you indicated to us that you, since June the 12th, attempted to walk the route you believe you took back from Mezzaluna to Ms. Aronson's apartment on June the 12th,
That's correct.
and that you,
Overruled.
and that you timed it or attempted to time it.
That's correct.
How many times did you do that, sir?
We did that twice.
You say we. Who'd you do that with?
The attorney.
Which attorney is that?
I did that with Mr. Bailey perhaps 1 month ago, and then with Mr. Neufeld a week ago Monday.
Do either one of them look like Ms. Aronson?
No, they don't.
And was it at night that you walked with them or during the day?
It was in the evening.
What time?
Approximately 10:30.
And what did you talk to them about as you were walking?
We were just, again, small talk. I think we were talking about my going back to school and just, we were trying to reenact to get an approximate pace.
Did it feel the same walking with Mr. Neufeld as it did walking with Ms. Aronson on June the 12th?
We were just walking and talking.
Did it feel the same?
Counsel, I don't think you need to answer.
Okay, let me ask you something, sir. Back on June the 12th, did you live in that neighborhood?
Back then, I did not know.
Did you at any point, have you ever lived in that neighborhood?
Not at that point. I do currently.
Okay. Then let me ask you this. Westgate, is that a fairly quiet street, sir?
I really can't make a I mean, like I said, I live in the area, but I don't live specifically right there in those couple of blocks. I don't really know Westgate specifically.
Well, you walked on Westgate that night, correct?
It was quiet that night.
Okay. And relatively speaking, would you say Westgate is busier or quieter than Bundy?
If I were going to make a guess, I would say that Bundy is probably a busier street.
And the other street, Granville, that is one block up from Westgate. As you look at this map, see where you have the red line there? That would be Westgate, correct?
Crossing Dorothy, you're saying?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. And if you go the next parallel street
Yes.
that would cross Dorothy, that would be Granville, correct?
I don't know the name of the street.
But is that a fairly quiet street compared to Bundy also?
I believe so.
Now, prior to June the 12th, you had never visited 875 South Bundy, is that right?
Yes, that's right.
And if I asked you to describe any of the houses in that block on Bundy, in the block of 875 South Bundy, would you have been able to do so?
No.
And as of June the 12th, before you, as of June the 13th, before you heard about the murders, could you have described for us the location of 875 South Bundy?
No.
And you never walked up the walkway of 875 South Bundy, is that right?
That's right.
And when you walked down 875, when you walked down Bundy with Miss Aronson, did you walk on the outside of the sidewalk or the inside of the sidewalk?
I was on the inside.
You were on the inside, closest to the walkway?
Yes, close to the house.
And as you were walking with her and talking to her, I think you indicated earlier you were not looking up the walkway to each house, correct?
Correct.
You were trying to get to know Ms. Aronson, is that right?
We were just making small talk, yes.
Well, you were paying attention to her, correct?
In small talk, yeah, I was paying attention to her.
Your first date. All right, now you indicated to us that you weren't sure exactly what route you took to Mezzaluna, correct?
Correct.
One route that we have here, I'd like to be marked People's 493, Your Honor.
Yes.
No, that was for the witness.
Overruled.
Okay. That's one route you may have taken, is according to your testimony, correct?
Maybe. I may have taken, yes.
Okay. Print that. It's
493.
printed. All right, now I'm going to ask you, sir. Start again at the same point on Darlington. Can you put the cross where it should be, Mr. Mandel?
It should be right there on that street.
Okay. Can you tell us another route you may have taken?
Stipulate that there are several routes.
Overruled. But this may be cumulative at some point in time.
I won't do it ad nauseum. Go ahead.
Another possible way to the restaurant?
That you could have taken that night.
I mean, I guess I could have gone down Darlington going east.
Okay.
Mr. Mandel, is there any of these possible routes that you feel more strongly is the possibility that you took?
I just don't recall specifically how I got there. I believe we went left on Westgate, but whether we took Dorothy down and made another left or whether we continued to Gorham and made the right, I just don't recall that one.
All right. Wait, stop. Okay, you didn't need to necessarily take a left on Westgate, but that's what you believe at this time?
Yes.
All right.
Counsel,
ahead.
I don't think we need to draw all these different maps.
May we approach?
No.
Just this one then? One?
The jury knows it's a possible route. He doesn't remember. The jury can figure out the different permutations on how to get from point A to point B.
All right. Let me ask you this, Mr. Mandel. In order to get back to Darlington location from Mezzaluna, you could have gone down Gorham and made a left at Granville, correct?
That's a possible way.
No, stop. Back up. Made a left here and gone down to Darlington
Overruled.
and made a right and gone all the way down to Ms. Aronson's apartment that way, correct?
That would be one way of going there.
Okay. And then another way would have been to go down Gorham and made a left at Westgate. Is that right?
Yes, that would be yet another way.
Now, if you had taken either one of those routes and gone... If you had taken either one of those routes, you never would have gone on to Bundy at all, would you?
That's true.
But instead, it's your testimony that you went all the way down Gorham
Correct.
and then you actually crossed... Can we do this? Great, thanks. Okay. I'm going to ask you to direct the arrow and tell the jury what route you took.
We went down Gorham towards Bundy. It's a rather large intersection at Bundy and Gorham, and we came around there to the left.
Now, you crossed Bundy, is that correct?
Yes, it is.
And you went to the opposite side of Bundy, is that right?
Yes, that's right.
And you went down Bundy,
Until just before the intersection of Darlington and Bundy.
okay, now wait a minute. At this point, you're still on the... You're going to have to back up. You're still on the west side of the street.
Yes.
So you actually had to cross cross Bundy, correct? To stay on the west side?
Yes, that's correct.
And then you crossed Dorothy and you were still on the west side, is that right?
Yes.
That's your testimony?
Yes, that's right.
You're sure about that?
I'm positive.
And you continued on the west side of Bundy till almost stop. Tell it where to stop. I'm telling him to stop.
Yes,
'cause
until just before the intersection of Darlington and Bundy. And then we crossed, I think there's a driveway right there, and we just diagonally went across the street onto Darlington, onto the north side of Darlington.
So you went diagonally across the street? And you had to cross back to the east side, correct?
The east side of Bundy, correct?
So you didn't just stay on the east side of Bundy to begin with. You actually crossed over to the west side of Bundy, which made you then have to cross back at the intersection, back to the east side again at the intersection of Bundy and Darlington.
Overruled.
Correct?
Correct. We were always on the west side of Bundy.
And as you walked, you were talking to Ms. Aronson.
Correct.
It was fairly dark,
Yes,
and you were not trying to look and see if there was blood on the walkway or blood on the sidewalk, correct?
that's correct.
And when you got to the location, at some point you looked at your watch, is that right?
Yes, that's right.
And where was it that you looked at your watch?
Is at about the midpoint between that intersection of Bundy and Darlington and where Ellen's apartment is. There's a like an alleyway.
And can you direct the arrow to that point?
Yeah, if you go on to, well, it's right between the pink line and the first marking of Ellen's apartment. Approximately there.
Can you change the orientation of the arrow? I think that would be more helpful.
Is that correct?
Yeah, well, a little closer towards the X. Yeah, approximately there.
Okay, you're not sure exactly where you were when you looked at your watch, is that right?
It was near that alley. I just can't tell exactly on this where that was.
And when you looked at your watch, you thought it was about 10:30?
Yes,
You're not sure exactly, somewhere around 10:30, correct?
correct.
And at that point, you made an estimate of how long it had been since you passed by the location of 875 South Bundy?
I didn't do that evening, but
You've done that since then?
yes, I have.
And when was the first time you did that?
I suppose I began thinking about it, back that week in June.
So it was, what, a couple days after it happened?
I don't know, perhaps not, yeah, a couple days after.
And all you could do was estimate because you were not looking at your watch when you say you walked down across 875 South Bundy, correct?
Overruled.
I did not look at my watch when I was at 875, no.
You didn't look at your watch at any point when you were walking down Bundy, did you?
No,
And you didn't look at your watch when you left the restaurant, did you?
no,
And the only time you remember looking at your watch at this point was when you got down to Darlington, is that right?
that's correct.
When you say now it was about 10:30, correct?
Correct.
And you then walked Ms. Aronson home, is that right?
Yes, that's right.
And how long did you stay in her apartment?
I stayed until probably 11 o'clock, approximately 11 o'clock.
Did you hear any dogs barking at any point that night?
No, I did not.
And when you left her apartment, did you drive?
Yes, I did.
And where did you drive?
I headed east on Darlington.
And did you hear any dogs barking at that time?
No, I did not.
You didn't live in the neighborhood, correct?
No, I didn't.
So you never heard any dogs barking at any time that night, did you?
Nothing that I can recollect, no.
You have no recollection of any dogs barking.
Correct.
Print out, Your Honor, first of all, is people's, should I give it its own number or give it a 493A?
No, 494.
494. Nothing further.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. Mr. Mandel, the first person in an official capacity that you talked to about this case was a member of the Los Angeles Police Department.
Yes, that's true.
And when you talked to that person, did you tell them that you went by the location of Nicole Brown Simpson's condominium on June the 12th?
Yes, I did.
And did you tell them it was approximately 10:30?
Yes, I did.
And did you tell them that you did not hear any dog bark?
Yes, I did.
Did you tell them that you did not hear any dog wail?
Yes, I did.
Did you tell them that you did not see any dog?
Correct.
And that person asked you to get a copy of your receipt for dinner?
Yes.
Did you do that?
Yes, I did.
Your Honor, may I mark as defense next did you call the credit card company?
Yes, I did.
And did they send you, thank you. Did they send you back correspondence with a copy of your credit card receipt?
Yeah, that's what they did.
May this be marked
1241.
1241? I've given a copy.
1231.
1231. I've given a copy to Ms. Clark, and 1232. And do you have a copy of that receipt at your office?
Yes, I do.
And at the break, did we have a conversation?
Yes, we did.
Did you approach me?
No, you approached me.
Okay. And what was the conversation about?
If I could retrieve that receipt.
And did you?
Yes, I did.
All right. May I approach, Your Honor?
You may.
We'll stop. Do you have the original of that receipt now?
Yes, I do. Well, I have it in my
You
office.
have it in your office. Can you have that forwarded here and we can exchange that?
Sure.
Is this a copy of the letter, number 1231, that came back with that receipt?
Yes, it is.
And there is a copy of the receipt there.
Correct.
Is there a date on that receipt?
Yes, there is.
What is the date?
June 12, 1994.
And is there a name of a restaurant on that receipt?
It's Metzluna Cafe.
And is there an amount on that receipt?
Yes, there is.
What's the amount?
4748.
And I know it's a fax copy, but can you decipher what the time is on that receipt?
The time's printed 8:55.
When you saw that the first time, did you think that was an error?
Yes, I did.
And what did you do after seeing that?
I called the restaurant.
And as a result of that, did you determine that it was an error
Yes, I did.
and that the time clock was an hour off?
Correct.
Objection, that calls for hearsay.
Sustained.
Right.
Answer stricken. However,
There's testimony
the
already.
record is from the Metzaluna witnesses is already in existence.
People established that.
Proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Do you know OJ Simpson?
No, I don't.
Have you ever met him?
No, I haven't.
Do you have any interest in the outcome of this case?
No, I don't.
Are you here to testify for any particular side?
No, I'm not.
Are you here to testify for any particular point of view?
No, I'm not.
Why are you here?
Because I was in that area that evening and I felt it might be relevant.
And you were subpoenaed to come
And I
to
was
court by
subpoenaed
the
to come.
defense.
Correct.
Now, Ms. Clark asked you about other dates. I mean, was there ever been another date you've been on where something this horrendous happened?
No.
Would it be fair to say that's why this event is fresh in your mind?
Well, objection. Meeting.
Sustained.
You told Ms. Clark that you weren't sure how you got to Mezzaluna
Correct.
from Miss Aronson's apartment. Did she lead the way?
Yes, you did.
However, coming back, how sure are you that you passed the condominium where Nicole Simpson Brown lived?
I'm positive.
No question about it whatsoever.
No question.
How sure are you that you passed that area shortly in the area of 10:30 p.m.?
I'm certain.
How certain are you that there was not a dog barking?
I have no recollection of one. So I'm certain.
How certain are you that there was not a dog wailing?
I'm certain.
How certain are you that there was not a dog in the area?
I'm certain.
Is there any reason why you would come and in any way shade the truth to this jury?
No.
May I just have a moment, Your Honor?
Certainly.
I have nothing further. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Mr. Mandel, you're certain there was no dog in the area?
I'm certain that I don't have a recollection of a dog wailing.
Right. You're certain you did not see a dog in the area, isn't that right?
That's correct.
You're certain you do not recall hearing a dog in the area, isn't that right?
That's correct.
If other witnesses did hear a dog in the area, does that mean they are all wrong, Mr.
Objection.
Mandel?
Loss of speculation, argument.
Argumentative.
You're certain of what you recall, isn't that right, sir?
Yes.
You cannot sit here and tell this jury that there was no dog in the neighborhood at that time, can you?
Objection, argumentative.
Overruled. Overruled.
Just that I didn't see one.
That's all you can say, isn't that right?
That's correct.
When you were on a blind date walking down a dark street with Ms. Aronson on the night of June the 12th, correct?
Correct.
And you said that you were walking on the west side of Bundy. You're sure of that?
I'm positive.
Positive of that?
Yes.
Now, Ms. Aronson had to lead you to the Mezzaluna, correct?
Correct.
Because you didn't know how to get there.
I knew where it was. She lived in the area, so we were walking together. It wasn't, she just basically led the way.
She lived in the area, you did not, correct?
Correct.
And so she led the way to the Mezzaluna, correct?
Correct.
And she led the way back, isn't that right?
Yes, that is right.
And if you were walking westbound on Bundy, crossing the area of 875 South Bundy, past that location, at about 10:25, between 10:20, 10:25, correct?
Excuse me, counsel, do you want to
Your
rephrase
Honor,
it?
this states the evidence.
That's what I was about to point out.
Wait, let me back
Rephrase
up
the
for a
question,
minute,
please.
sir. You got your receipt, and it said on the receipt that you paid your bill at the Mezzaluna at 8:50, 8:55? Is that your testimony? Is that right?
It's stamped 8:55, but I believe it was 9:55.
And you are basing your estimate of when you left the restaurant on the information you received that that time clock was an hour off,
That's correct.
because you did not look at your watch when you left.
That's correct.
And if the clock is actually an hour and 10 minutes off, you wouldn't know. Your time estimate about when you walked past 875 South Bundy would also be incorrect, wouldn't it?
Objection.
Overruled.
My best time reference is for when I looked at my watch on Darlington.
And you do not know whether that clock, the timestamp on your receipt is exactly an hour off, or 50 minutes off, or an hour and 10 minutes off, do you?
I couldn't be certain, no.
Now tell us, is it your testimony, sir, that you walked past 875 South Bundy sometime between 10:20 and 10:25,
I'd say approximately 10:25.
or between 10:25 and 10:30?
I'd say it's probably closer to 10:25 and 10:30.
So if you were walking down Bundy, passing 875 South Bundy at about 10:25, that means that you would have crossed Dorothy at what, about 10:26?
Dorothy, correct?
And that means that you would have been just above 875 at about 10:23?
Sounds reasonable.
And if someone was in their home just south of Dorothy, looking north on Bundy, he should have been able to see you, isn't that right?
Objection.
Walking south on Bundy?
Cause for speculation.
Sustained.
To your knowledge, sir, are you aware that someone testified that they looked out their window from that location I just pointed to south of Dorothy, looking north on Bundy, and saw no one walking down South Bundy at approximately 10:23?
Objection. No.
Overruled.
I hadn't heard that, no.
But of course, if you were walking down Westgate, he wouldn't have seen you on Bundy, would he?
Sustained.
I have nothing.
To make sure we get this done today, Your Honor.
Yes. Robertson.
Aronson, Your Honor. She's in the hallway.
All right. Can you grab the cup here, please? All right, good morning, Ms. Aronson, and we're just waiting for the clerk. All right, Mrs. Robertson.
Richard, you can sign this witness with testimony you make here in the cause not coming before this court. Truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes. Please have a seat on the witness stand and state and spell your first and last name for the record.
Ellen Aronson,
All right, could you spell that for us, please?
ELLENAARONSON.
All right, Ms. Aronson, would you just sit back, please, and then pull the microphone towards you? Thank you. Mr. Cochran.
Very kindly, Your Honor. Good morning, Ms. Aronson.
Good morning.
Ms. Aronson, what is your occupation?
I work as a production executive for a company. We produce children's television shows based on toys that we make.
And what kind of toys does that company make?
We make the toys for the Power Rangers, for the Tick, Mega Man. They're not going to forgive me for this. A number of different toy lines that we're starting based on a lot of Japanese television shows that come to the United States.
All right. Now, I'd like, ma'am, to ask you whether or not you're acquainted with a gentleman by the name of Mr. Danny Mandel.
We had a date once,
So,
so to speak.
so was he the man who just left? Did you still recognize him as he went out?
Yes,
All right. That was the gentleman you had a date with once?
yes,
And as I understand it, you and Mr. Mandel have the same doctor, is that correct?
yes,
And this doctor arranged the date at some time back in June of 1994?
correct,
And the date of that date was June 12th, 1994?
correct.
All right. And back at that time, where did you live now?
Excuse me?
Where did you live on June 12th of 1994?
Same address where I live now, which is 119.
Oh, you don't have to give your,
okay.
I don't think you should give your address.
Good.
Tell us what street you lived on.
Darlington,
Okay. And you still live the same place now?
yes.
All right. And tell us how this date took place. Did Mr. Mandel come to your house?
He picked me up.
All right. And you told us you lived at this location. Did anyone else live there with you?
I have two roommates.
All right. And they same roommates now or at that time?
No, I have different roommates now.
You had two roommates at that time?
I had two roommates at that time.
And what were their names, if you recall?
Tell you their names?
Yes, you can tell us.
Jennifer Yao and Jean Novak.
All right.
Can you spell those for us, please?
Jennifer, or the last name Yao, Y-O-W, and Novak, N-O-V-A-C-K.
All right. Those are your roommates back on June 12th?
Correct.
At the Darlington residence?
Right.
All right. On this particular date, can you tell the court and jury what time Mr. Mandel arrived at your location, your house?
He arrived at my house a little after 8 o'clock p.m.
All right. And did he come in at that point?
No,
All right.
he didn't come inside my apartment.
Okay, well, tell us what happened once he got there a little after 8 o'clock on June 12th, 1994.
He rang the bell. I really don't recall if he walked into the apartment. We met. We left my gate. We walked towards his car. We went into his car. He asked me what I wanted to have for dinner, if I had a place I wanted to go to. I said, why don't we go to Mezzaluna? And because it's really walking distance, we decided to walk, so we left his car and then proceeded to walk to Mezzaluna.
All right. So you got out of the car and then you proceeded to walk to a restaurant called Mezzaluna?
Correct.
And, Your Honor, we now have our board. And, it might be easier, I suppose, to use the same board for continuity. I think we'll use this board.
All right, proceed.
Okay, thank you. If I were to approach, if the clerk allows me to, just briefly, I'd like to show the jury generally where your apartment is, and so we're acclimated. And if you need to step down, you can. You see Dorothy there?
Yes, Darlington is this street.
All right.
I live between Bundy and Westgate, about a few houses in.
All right.
So right around there.
And where's Westgate?
Right here.
Westgate's here, and this is Bundy here.
Correct.
So you live between Bundy and Westgate on Darlington, a few houses in from Bundy, is that correct?
Yes.
All right, so we have a general idea.
Yeah.
Okay. And I presume then that after you got out of Mr. Mandel's car, you decided to go someplace at that point, is that right?
Right.
And where did you go, and did you know how to get there?
Yes, I knew how to get there.
Did you kind of lead the way?
Pretty much so.
Can you tell this court and jury what route you took? And if you need to familiarize yourself with that particular map, give us an idea of which way you went to the Metzlin restaurant.
You want me to point it out again?
Yes, can you do that for us?
Danny was parked on the other side of the street from my apartment. We left. We walked down the street, down Darlington. That's Dorothy, I apologize. We crossed over Westgate.
Okay, the first street you come to is Westgate there? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, you crossed over Westgate.
We crossed Westgate to Granville.
Street called Granville?
Right.
Is that, for the record, Granville?
Correct.
All right. And when you got to Granville, what happened?
Headed north,
All right, you turned left on Granville?
turned left on Granville.
All right, and then where'd you go?
Went a few blocks up to right where Gorham basically is at that stage. Bundy turns into Gorham, so that's Gorham at this stage.
All right. And then
So we
you-
crossed the street,
all right. And you got to the restaurant?
and that we're really on the side of the restaurant at that stage.
Okay, so
But
that's generally the route that you took?
Yeah, we then
Right.
just walked around it to go to the front of the restaurant.
Okay. All right, trace that one more time for us so everybody's clear how you went.
I'm on
Went up
Darlington.
Darlington.
We walked down Darlington past Westgate, got to Granville, made a left on Granville, went up to Gorham, and at Gorham, we crossed the street to the side of the restaurant, walked down, and then walked around to the entrance of the restaurant.
All right, and so that we're clear, the kind of moon-shaped circle there, that's supposedly Metzaluna.
Right.
All right. And do you know about what time it was that you arrived at Metzaluna?
We probably arrived there at around 8:30.
All right. And this was a blind date, your first date, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And so once you arrived there, did the two of you have dinner?
We sat down.
All right.
We didn't have dinner immediately.
All right. Did you sat down, it was like a regular date, right?
Right.
All right, well, we'll skip over the first parts.
I'd appreciate it.
All right. And then at some point you ate, did you not?
Yes, it took a while. Service wasn't very fast that evening.
All right. So I'm sure they'll be glad to hear that.
Sorry.
And you then ordered dinner. Is that
We
right?
ordered dinner.
Do you remember what you had that night, ma'am?
I recall we both had pasta.
All right. And you had your pasta. Did you have anything of an alcoholic nature to drink that night?
No.
All right. And so you had the pasta, and then the date continued. Is that correct?
Correct.
Now, there came a time when I presume you finished your meal. Is that correct?
Yes.
And at some point, did somebody call for the check that evening?
No, we never asked for the check. The waitress asked us if we would close out.
All right. Close out means to settle up with her. Is that
To
correct?
settle up with her. Her shift was ending.
All right. That was a lady? Oh,
It was a
female
lady.
waitress. Do you know her name?
I don't know her name at all. No, I don't recall.
And you'd been to that restaurant before?
Yes.
Had you had that particular waitress before, if you recall?
I don't recall.
All right. After she asked you to settle up, what happened then?
Danny paid immediately. Bill came back to us pretty quickly afterwards, a few minutes later.
All right. And so when you said he paid, we paid by credit card?
By credit card.
All right. So there's a credit card record of the amount of the purchase and the tip and all that sort of thing. Is that
Yes.
right? All right. After you settle up with this particular waitress, did you leave the restaurant immediately at that point?
No.
Do you have an estimate for this court and jury of about what time it was that you settled up the check at Metzaluna that evening?
After we got the check, we sat there and talked for about 10, 15 minutes and then left.
All right, so you talked for about 10 or 15 minutes after you got the check, is that right?
After we got the bill back to us.
All right, and do you have an idea of about what time you got it back? What time was it, approximately around 10 o'clock at that point?
Objection leading.
Well,
Sustained.
the counsel's correct, right? What time was it that you got the bill back?
I can only estimate.
Your best estimate, yeah.
I looked at my watch when she first came and asked the two of us to pay, which was 10 to 10 to.
10
to 10.
10 to 10.
And the bill came very shortly afterwards, about 5, 10 minutes later, not even 10 minutes.
All right, and if I were to show you a copy of the receipt, which indicates that it was not considered drug.
Sustained. Did you see the bill?
Oh, Lay Foundation. Yes.
All right.
Thank you. Did you have occasion to see that bill that night, or have you seen it since that time?
I haven't seen it since. I only saw the bill when it came
You saw it that night,
to the table. I didn't study the bill.
but you saw it.
Yes.
All right, may I approach it? I just want you just to look at it and ask you whether or not
Objection, Your Honor, that's not the bill. That's his credit card receipt.
Sustained.
you saw what you saw, I presume, was the credit card bill in print. Is that right?
The credit card receipt I saw returned.
Yes. That's what you meant, but.
I'm sorry.
Okay, that's all right. Can you look at this? This is a fax copy received at the court. This looks similar to the copy of what you saw that particular evening, ma'am? That Mr.
It looks like a receipt that Metzaluna would give.
All right. And with regard to the bill that particular evening, did Mr. Mandel pay it?
Correct.
And he paid it by credit card?
Yes.
All right. After he paid this particular bill, you described for the court and jury the fact that you continued to talk for 10 or 15 minutes after that. Is that correct?
Yes.
So did you stay at the same table?
Yes.
All right. And at some time after the 10 or 15 minute period of time, did you have occasion to leave the Metzaluna restaurant? After you
Correct.
finished
Yeah,
talking?
right. After we sat and talked for about 10, 15 minutes, we left.
All right. And the bill had been paid now, and now the date was, this part of the date was going to end, right?
Right.
All right. And do you recall whether or not there were other people inside that restaurant at that time?
I recall that the restaurant was full. It
All
was
right, and
very crowded.
It was crowded that evening?
Yeah.
When you got ready to leave, do you remember whether it was full still? Your best recollection?
My best recollection, it was not as full as when we arrived.
All right. Now, at any rate, how did you leave the restaurant? Which door did you go out of, if you recall, when you left the restaurant?
Oh, it's not the restaurant. I recall that we left on the exit door that was by our table,
Yes.
which was a side door.
All
And we
right.
climbed over the fence on the side of the restaurant.
That's how you got out?
Right. It's a
Okay.
low fence.
Okay, and you climbed out, and that's how you left after you paid the bill. Is that right?
Yes.
Do you know about what time it was at that time, ma'am?
I only know if I add up my time.
All right.
I did not look at my watch.
All right. You didn't look at your watch at that time.
No.
You know what time you asked for the check, is that correct?
Right.
And then how much time elapsed between the time that you asked for the check and the waitress brought the check back to you?
I have to sort of change. I didn't ask for the check
Okay, strike that. Let me restate it at any rate. You're right. How much time elapsed from the time that the waitress asked you to close out
until we got the
till
bill.
the time you got the bill?
About from the time she came up to us, Danny handed her the credit card, and she came back. I'm approximating here 5 to 8 minutes
All right.
at the most.
All right. So then you then got it, and then he then signed it pretty quickly. Is that correct?
He signed it.
Okay. And then was it then 10 or 15 minutes after that before you
It was
then
then
left?
10 or 15 minutes after that.
All right.
Excuse me, counsel. Mr. Aronson, would you please allow Mr. Cochran and Ms. Clark to finish asking questions of you before you start to answer? Court reporter can only write down one person at a time.
Okay.
And if you both talk at the same time, it makes her job very difficult.
Okay.
Thank you, Ann. All right. So it's at 10 or 15 minutes after you gotten the check, you then left this restaurant, right?
Right.
Okay. And did you leave walking, I
Yes.
presume? All right. Now I want you to show the court and jury again which way you took to go back to your residence. And I'd like for you to use the pointer if you can and show us which way you took.
Okay. From Metzaluna, we walked down Gorham. We passed Westgate. And Gorham then turns into Bundy, and we turned on Bundy. This whole time we were on the north side of Gorham. We crossed over
Okay,
Bundy.
let me stop you there as you took that route. This route you're describing for us, again, how'd you select that particular route?
When we got to Westgate,
Yes.
which my apartment is between Westgate and Bundy, we were talking, and I just asked Danny if he wanted to take the short walk home or the long walk home.
And what did he say?
Take the longer walk home.
So it was still a date, right? So you could,
We were just talking.
all right. So you took a longer walk home.
Took a longer walk home.
All right. So you proceeded on down Gorham at that point.
Correct. We
right.
proceeded down Gorham.
All right. As indicated, Your Honor, for the record, the witness is pointing using the diagram. And she's proceeding down Gorham. This is People's 26 of the court, please.
Yes.
Down Gorham Square. Is that correct?
Yes.
And so when you, as you were walking down Gorham, do you recall, the two of you walked, and as you turned on Bundy, do you recall on which side of Bundy did you go when you made that turn at Gorham to Bundy?
As we crossed over where Gorham and Bundy meet,
Yes, ma'am.
we stayed on the same side, which was west, which because the road turns, it turns into the north side.
All right, so-
Excuse me, it's the north side and it turns into the west side of the street.
And Your Honor, I'm going to want to trace this particular route if I can, and I'd like to do this if we can. May I have just 1 second? Ask, so we have a record of this, that Mr. Harris be allowed to, I want to trace the route going first, then we'll do a separate one with the coming back. The court pleases on the Elmo.
All right, maybe we can just have different colors for each route.
Sure, is that okay, Mr. Harris? All right, why don't you direct Mr. Harris? Now we're starting at Darlington. That's approximately where you live? Is that
Yes.
right? All right, we'll trace the route that you took. Why don't you direct Mr. Harris, and he will,
Do you want me to do it through this or just keep telling you where
yeah,
to go?
tell him which way to go on Darlington.
Go east. You're on Dorothy, but go east 2 blocks from there. That's Westgate. Go 1 more block to Granville. Stop at Granville. Make a left at Granville and head up. All the way up to Gorham. You're going to cross Gorham and go into Mezzaluna Restaurant. If you want to, right.
So that's the general route that you took going. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. Your Honor, I'd like to print this out as our defense's next exhibit, if the court pleases.
All right.
The next is,
This will
there's
be
an extra
defense
X on there.
12.
There's an X of Dorothy I'd like to take off there.
All right.
You get that off? All right, is that fairly accurate?
Yeah.
All right, what's that number, Your Honor?
1233.
1233. I'd like to print this out.
All right, is that captured, Mr. Fretlow? Oh, Mr. Harris. All right, proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Now, I'd like, Your Honor, as soon as that's captured, Your Honor, if it's captured, to have Ms. Aronson to demonstrate the route back to her apartment. And I presume that's Gorham, is that correct?
That's Gorham.
So why don't you direct him down from Gorham?
Now you should head west all the way down to where Gorham and Bundy meet.
You might want to stay on the street.
Now head north down Bundy. Now, I'm getting my, excuse me, heading south down.
South on Bundy at that point.
Right, Bundy turns. We were on the west side of the street, though.
All right.
Go all the way down to Darlington, which is 1 block past Dorothy. Turn left onto Darlington. And I would pretty much go maybe about another centimeter and stop there. It's pretty much where my apartment is.
Okay, we mark that. Is that again the general route that you took home? That's the general route that you took home?
Yeah.
And that's the longer route that you described for us, is that right?
Right.
Now, as you were walking along this route, as you were proceeding down Gorham to Bundy and to go southbound on Bundy, what were you and Mr. Mandel doing at that point?
We were talking.
And without going into the subject matter of the conversation, was this just general conversation?
Just general conversation.
And as you walk down, how long have you lived in that general area, ma'am?
I've lived there now for 3.5 years.
All right. And you said you were on the west side of the street. Is that correct?
Correct.
And do you recall who was closest to the street and who was closest to would be the sidewalk?
I was on the outside.
All right. So you were on the closest to the street side.
Yes.
Mr. Mandel was inside. Is that correct?
Yes.
Do you recall him doing anything other than talking as you walked along?
On that side of the street?
Yes, on
I was
Bundy, as you were going southbound on Bundy.
hitting the trees, the leaves on the trees.
Sorry.
Just walking and he was hitting the trees. That was pretty much it.
All right. And at some point, did you walk past 875 South Bundy?
Yes.
And you know where 875 South Bundy is, and you became aware of that. Is that correct?
I know where 875 Bundy is now.
All right. And you walked right past that place that particular night?
Yes.
All right. And photograph that Mr. Shapiro used, Your Honor. I want to approach my mic, Your Honor.
Yes.
I have People's 42 for identification. Before I put on the Elmo, and I want Your Honor to cut the feed at any rate, I'll ask the witness a couple of questions. You described for us that you were proceeding on the west side of Bundy, southbound, you on the outside, and Mr. Mandel on the inside. Is that correct? I want to show you People's 42, which purports to be a photograph. Have you seen this photograph before?
Yes.
And you recognize what's depicted in this photograph, supposedly the front part of the 875 Bundy?
Yes.
And you recognize that area depicted therein?
Yes.
Did you walk past that area that particular night?
Yes, I did.
Now, when you walk past 875 South Bundy, do you have a recollection of whether or not you looked to your right, or did anything attract your attention as you walked past that location toward that particular condominium?
Nothing attracted my attention at all.
As you walked down the sidewalk proceeding southbound, did you see any bloody paw prints or any traces of blood on the sidewalk that evening as you walked?
No, I didn't.
As you walked past 875 Bundy, did you at any time hear the plaintive wail of a dog?
No, I didn't.
Did you hear any dogs barking as opposed to plaintively wailing?
No.
So you continued with your conversation as you walked past, is that correct?
Yes.
Was there anything at all that attracted your attention to 875 Bundy when you walked past this location?
No.
So, Your Honor, if I might, cut the feet out.
Yes.
Thank you, Your Honor. And as you walk past 875 Bundy, you did not see the scene depicted there the time you walked past. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. Thank you. You may take it down. Thank you. Now, as you continued on, we'll flip you there. As you continued on your route home, at some point, was there a discussion of the time between you and Mr. Mandel? Did anybody look at their watch, if you recall?
Danny looked at his watch.
All right. And was that at some point after you passed the location of 875 South Bundy?
Yes.
And so you were between 875 South Bundy and your home at that point?
Yes.
And at that time, the two of you had a conversation about what time it was? You can answer that yes or no.
Yes.
All right.
Objection, that's leading and calls for hearsay.
Sustained.
All right. Did you have a discussion about what time it was?
Objection, same objection.
Sustained.
You have a conversation with Mr. Mandel on the way home? Did it continue?
Yes.
In the course of that conversation, did you ever discuss time?
No.
Did you ever discuss what time it was at any point?
We didn't discuss what time it was, but he looked at his watch.
All right. Was there ever a time when either one of you looked at a watch?
Yes.
And who looked at a watch?
Danny.
And where were you approximately when Mr. Danny Mandel looked at his watch?
We were between where my apartment is, sort of right in the middle from where my apartment is to the corner of Darlington and Bundy.
All right, if you were to look at the diagram again, to your right, I guess that's People's 26, I believe. Can you use the pointer and show the jury approximately where you were at the time?
If this is the corner, my house is over here, we were over there.
All right, so you were between the corner of Bundy. You were going now, which direction is that?
We're heading east.
East on Darlington, between the corner of, or your intersection of Bundy and Darlington as you approached your house. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay. And did you see him look at his watch at that point?
Yes.
All right. And did he at some point say something about the time?
Objection, Your Honor.
You can answer that yes or no.
Objection.
Sustained.
All right. So you saw him look at his watch, right? Okay. Now, then did you go back to your house?
Yes.
Okay. And when you got home, did Mr. Mandel leave immediately, or did he come up, or what happened at that point?
Gave him a glass of water.
And so he came inside? Okay.
Came inside.
All
I
right.
gave him a glass of water. We talked for a few minutes, and then one of my roommates came home.
All right. Now, which roommate came home after you were inside the apartment, if you recall?
My roommate, Jean Novak.
Gene Novak? And do you know what time Gene Novak came home?
Yes, I do.
And what time was that?
10:35.
All right. And how long had you been in the house when Miss Novak came home at about 10:35?
About 5 minutes.
So what is your best estimate of the time that you got back to your residence there on Darlington that night?
I misunderstood your
Let
question.
me ask the question another way. You told us that your roommate got home about 10:35.
Right.
And you'd been home about 5 minutes?
Right.
So you got home about 10:30?
Correct.
All right. And from the location of 875 South Bundy to your residence, how long did it take you to walk that distance that particular night?
About 4 minutes.
All right. So about 4 minutes from the 875 South Bundy to your residence on Darlington. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. Got to answer out loud.
Yes,
All
that's
right.
correct.
Now, since that time, have you had occasion to go back out and walk this particular route?
Yes.
And on how many occasions have you done that? The route you took that night, I'm talking about.
A few occasions on my own,
All right.
and one occasion very recently where I timed it.
All right, you timed it yourself? Were you accompanied by anybody when you did that?
Yes, I was accompanied by someone,
By whom?
by both Pat McKenna and Peter Neufeld,
All right, Peter Neufeld, the lawyer?
the lawyer.
All right. And how long ago was that?
2 weeks ago?
All right. And did you walk the route going to the restaurant?
Yes.
And how long did that take? From your house to the restaurant that you've told us about?
We didn't time that route,
All right. But did you time the route coming back from
but
the
we
restaurant?
timed the route coming back.
All right. And from the time, how long did it take to walk from Metzaluna back to your residence on Darlington?
It took altogether about 19 minutes.
All right. And how long did it take, if you know, from the restaurant to 875 South Bundy?
It took us 15 minutes.
So there's about a 4-minute difference, is that right?
Correct.
And did you try, as you walk this route, did you try to walk at approximately the same pace you walked that particular night?
Yes.
So altogether 19 minutes, and to 875 South Bundy, about 15 minutes from the restaurant, is that right?
Yes.
Now, you were describing for us that you had a roommate that came home about 10:35, Ms. Novak.
Correct.
And was Mr. Mandel still present at that time?
Yes, he was.
And did he continue to stay there for a period of time?
Yes.
All right. Did your other roommate ever come home that evening?
Yes, she did.
What time did the other roommate come home, if you know?
She came home a few minutes before 11 o'clock.
All right. And was Mr. Mandel still there at that
He
point?
was leaving exactly when she came home.
All right, just a few minutes before 11 o'clock.
Right.
Okay, and that roommate's name is Miss Jennifer Yao?
Jennifer Yao.
All right. So then at one point, that evening, Ms. Jennifer Yao was present, your other roommate, Ms. Novak, was present, along with you and Mr. Mandel.
Right.
All right. And then, as I understand your testimony, Mr. Mandel left. Is that correct?
Yes, that is.
And did something happen about 11 o'clock that, so you knew what time that was, watching television?
I sat down with my roommate Jennifer. We talked about our day, and we turned on the television, and the evening news started.
All right. So then the evening news being at what time, 11 o'clock?
11 o'clock.
All right. And so at this point, Mr. Mandel has now left, and it's you and your two roommates. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. Now, at any time up to the time that Mr. Mandel left, did you hear any furious barking or any loud barking in that particular area at all that night?
No, I didn't.
As you walked past 875, you already told us you didn't hear any barking at that point, right?
Correct.
As you before you got home that evening, did you hear any barking that you recall?
No, I
dogs?
never heard any barking at all.
All right. Now, at some point, you had occasion to talk to some police officers regarding this case. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you also had occasion to speak with the lady to my immediate left, Ms. Marsha Clark.
Yes.
Do you recall approximately when it was that you talked to Ms. Marsha Clark?
When I met with Marcia Clark
Yes.
in August of last year
All right, and you met with her where?
in her office.
In this building?
Yes, in this building.
All right. And who else was present during the conversation that you had with Ms. Marsha Clark?
I forget the gentleman's last name. Investigator Phil. I feel very embarrassed. He was a very nice gentleman. I don't
Just one
remember
second.
his.
Let me ask you, could it have been Bill Hodgman, a tall gentleman?
No, it wasn't Bill Hodgman. It was an investigator. Van Etter?
Phil Van Etter?
Yes.
An LAPD detective? All right, so,
Yes.
all right, we can't, like, name the investigator. So Phil Van Etter?
Correct.
All right. So you and Mr. Detective Van Etter and Marsha Clark met in her office in August of 1994. Is that correct?
Yes.
And how long did that meeting last?
About an hour. And my recollection is, I think it was a little longer than an hour, maybe an hour and a half.
And during that time, did you discuss the events of the night of June 12th, 1994?
Yes, we did.
And you told Ms. Clark everything to the best of your recollection, did you?
Yes, I did.
And was she taking notes at that time, Ms. Clark?
Yes, I think she was.
And was Detective Van Etter taking notes?
I honestly can't recall if there was a pad in front of him at all times or not.
Do you recall whether or not either one of them tape recorded your conversation?
The conversation was not tape recorded.
All right. And it was during the entire 90 minutes or so that you talked to them? Were they the only two in the room, or did others come in?
No, there was only two of them were in the room.
And prior to this conversation in August of 1994, had you had occasion to talk to the members of the Los Angeles Police Department about your observations on the evening of June 12th before you met with Ms. Clark?
Yes.
And do you recall when that was approximately that you first spoke with the police in connection with your observations of June 12th?
The first time I spoke with the police was on Tuesday, June 14th.
All right, that would be 2 days after that Sunday, is that correct?
Yes.
And how did it happen that you spoke to a police officer at that time? Did you call them or they call you?
I called them.
And was it your intent to share with them some information that you thought you had?
Correct.
This might be a good point, Shirley.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take our recess for the noon hour. Please remember all of my admonitions to you. Don't discuss the case amongst yourselves, form any opinions about the case, conduct any deliberations till the matter has been submitted to you, or allow anybody to communicate with you with regard to the case. And Ms. Aronson, you may step down. You're ordered to come back at 1:30. All right? All right, we'll stand in recess until 1:30.
Sidewalk of Gorham Avenue to Bundy Drive. Witness decided with Mandel to take the long route. Is that correct?
Correct.
The long route home rather than south on Westgate. Is that right?
Correct.
And you told the detective that, didn't you?
Yes.
And that was true, was it not?
Yes, it is.
that the two continued to walk leisurely southbound on Bundy Drive on the west sidewalk to Darlington Avenue. Is that correct?
I think we need page 2 here.
Oh, Mr. Thank you, Honor. Can you see that? Mm-hmm. Can you bring that up?
Is that yes?
Yes, sorry.
No, sweet.
Rather than south on Westgate.
Let me get through that.
Mr. Harris, can you put the first page back over?
Back out.
Put the first page just for a second. Turn it back over. Let me ask you this, that the witness decided with Mandel to take the long route, I'll turn it over, home rather than south on Westgate Avenue. Is that correct?
Correct.
Thought I'd covered that.
Oh,
At the bottom. Not sure you're still there. They continue on. The two continued to walk leisurely southbound on Bundy Drive, the west sidewalk to Darlington. Is that correct?
correct.
And that's the route you've shown us here. Is that correct?
Yes.
That, again, I'll wait for Mr. Harris to do that. Again, the witness recalled that nothing unusual occurred to gain her attention. Is that correct?
Correct.
The witness did not hear any dogs barking or see any vehicles.
Correct.
So indicated. Witness stated she did not stop in front of Nicole Simpson's residence or look down the Simpson walkway. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Witness said there was no reason to stop on the walk home.
Correct.
All right. That witness estimates she passed Nicole Simpson's residence at approximately 22:20 to 22:25 hours. Is that correct?
Correct.
And that you went on to tell that witness reported that Dan Mandel could possibly obtain a copy of his credit card receipt. Is that correct?
Yes.
Now, when you talked to Detective Kilcoyne on July 8th, again, you had told him you had to get the time frame squared away. You tried to be accurate, did you not?
As accurate as possible.
All right. And then later on, on September 12th, 1994, at about 9:15 in the morning, you had occasion to speak with Miss Marcia Clark and with Detective Van Adder. Is that correct?
Overruled.
And I would like now to refer to defendants, I think it's 1236, Your Honor. $12.36 up, Your Honor. For identification. Got a copy of it. It'll be up in just a second. All right.
Can you back out just a bit? That's fine, thank you.
Can you see that on the monitor? All right.
Yes.
I'm going to ask you some questions about this statement written by Detective Van Adder, the interview with Van Adder and Clark. All right? Did you indicate to them when you met them in this building that you related the same information as given on the previous interviews, except to give the exact direction she and your blind date, Dan Mandel, had taken while walking home? Is that correct? Gave them the exact route that you took here today?
Yes, I did.
That you told them that you left the Mezzaluna restaurant at approximately 2200 to 2205 hours, like 10:05 hours. Is that correct?
Correct.
She walked south on Gorham to Bundy, where they walked south on the west side of Bundy. Is that correct?
Correct.
Stated there were very few vehicles on Bundy, and you did not observe any other persons walking. Did you tell them that?
Yes.
Was that correct?
Yes.
That when you arrived at Darlington was your street, was it not?
Darlington is my street.
That they observed two persons walking a medium-sized, short-haired dog. Did you tell them that?
Yes.
Is that what you told us here today?
Yes.
Is that accurate?
Yes.
They then walked east on Darlington on the north side and stopped halfway between the corner and her residence. period. She stated she asked Danny if he wanted to come up to her apartment. Danny looked at his watch. Is that correct?
Yeah.
That she believed at that time it was 22:28 to 22:29 hours, 10:28, 10:29 hours. Is that correct?
Correct.
She stated her apartment was approximately a 4-minute walk from the murder scene, and that they passed that location at approximately 22:25 or 10:25. Is that what you indicated to Ms. Clark and Detective Van Allen?
Yes.
Was that accurate?
Yes.
She stated she did not hear nor see anything when they walked by, not hear any dogs barking. Did you make that statement?
Yes, I did.
And is that accurate?
Completely.
Now, as you were walking along Bundy towards Darlington, did you ever at any time see any bloody paw prints on that sidewalk, the direction in which you were heading?
No.
As you walk past 875 South Bundy, did you ever hear the sound of a gate clanging at all?
No.
Did you ever hear a man's voice say, "Hey, hey, hey"?
No.
Did you ever hear the sound of two voices as you walk past there?
Overruled.
I never heard anything.
It was quiet and nothing. Was anything ever called to your attention as you walked past?
Nothing was called to my attention.
And when you call the police, it's your best recollection that was on June 14th. Is that correct? I'll restate it. What was the date of your best recollection when you called the detective the first time?
Tuesday. So whatever that Tuesday is,
All right.
which I think is the 14th.
If Sunday was the 12th, then
It was the
Tuesday would be
14th.
the 14th, right? All right. That's your best recollection, right?
Yes.
And when you were calling, and in your subsequent calls, why were you calling the police?
I thought it was my civic duty to call the police.
And you didn't know OJ Simpson, or you didn't know his involvement or anything in this case, did you? At that time?
Overruled.
That's that. You weren't trying to help OJ Simpson, were you?
I knew that he was involved, but I was not trying to help him.
All right. You called because of why?
Because the news reports were saying that at the time that I was around there was a
Overruled. This is just limited to the purpose, not that what the news report said was true, but merely to explain why Ms. Aronson called the police. You can finish your answer.
Okay. The news reports were saying that there was a dog barking, that there were lights on a Bronco. I think they said the hazards were on, the lights were blinking. At the point that I was at that street, on the street, there was nothing. It was an extremely quiet evening, out of a movie. I thought it was weird. And that's why I called the police, just to give the information. If they want to know what other people thought about the street, that's why I called. I honestly never thought it would get this far.
All right. And so in calling the police and in talking to us here today, have you told us the truth about what happened that evening?
Yes.
You weren't trying to help one side or the other, were you?
No.
Just tell the truth?
Yes, I did.
Thank you very much.
Ms. Clark, anything else?
Ms. Aronson, very briefly. Is it your testimony that you told Detective Kilcoyne about seeing a couple walking a dog on Darlington?
Beyond scope of
Overruled. It was in the statement.
I'm getting so confused.
Do you remember the question?
Yes, I do remember the question, and I also know that I said to you that I do think that I said something to him. I don't recall when I said something about the dog.
Okay. You reviewed.
I haven't read everything, to tell you the truth, to remember everything that I wrote down and said.
You reviewed the statement you gave to Detective Kilcoyne on July the 8th, correct?
Yes, very briefly, I just did.
And the statement you're looking at now, that's up on the Elmo, it's defense
12:36.
1236. That was not a statement given to Detective Kilcoyne, was it?
No.
That,
Overruled. Overruled.
This was a statement that you gave to Detective Van Adder in my presence, correct?
Correct.
And you reviewed the statement you gave to Detective Kilcoyne on June the 15th, have you not?
Very briefly, yes, I have.
Again, People's 495. That statement, correct? That statement makes no mention of having seen a couple walking a dog, correct?
Correct.
And the July 8th statement also that you gave to Detective Kilcoyne makes no statement of having seen a couple walking a dog.
Correct.
So would it be fair to say that the first time you mentioned to a police officer seeing a couple walking a dog on Darlington was in September when you spoke to Detective Van Adder?
I'm checking the phone back question.
Overruled. Overruled.
It's fair.
And the statement that you see now before you, June the 15th, that you gave to Detective Kilcoyne, can you tell us, first of all, based on what you told him, was it an accurate representation of what you said, where he wrote, witness and her date walked to her apartment, passing the crime scene location at 11 o'clock or 2300 hours?
Overruled.
Can you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
Based on what you told Detective Kilcoyne on June the 15th, is the statement that where he puts, quote, witness and her date walked to her apartment, passing the crime scene location at 11 o'clock or 2300 hours, is that a fair statement, representation of what you told him?
It is a fair statement of representation of what I told him on the 15th.
And that you knew the time because you looked at your wristwatch and you were surprised at the hour. You did tell him that also,
There's a sentence in there missing.
that was at 10 to 11, correct?
Yes, that I looked at my watch at the restaurant at 10 to 11.
All right. Nevertheless, you did tell him that you looked at your watch and you were surprised at the hour, correct?
Correct. That it was 10 to.
And it is also correct and accurate then when he states that at 11:25 to 11:30, your roommate Jennifer Yao came home from Manhattan Beach and remarked about the time. You did tell him that.
I don't recall telling him the time 11:25, 11:30, but that's what's written down there, so I understand why I wrote it.
And you wrote it because you estimated that about a half an hour after you got home, your roommate arrived?
Right.
So that would be a fair and accurate representation of what you told him.
Yes, it is.
Justice Lafayette. Regarding to so that we're absolutely clear.
You told Detective Kilcoyne the first time you made a statement you weren't sure on the times, isn't that right?
Yes, I did.
And so the statement Ms. Clark had up there was the time when you first talked to the detective and weren't clear on the times, right?
Yes, it is.
Overruled.
The statements which I had you read and just read for this jury were after you checked the times and were clear on the times, right?
Correct.
Sustained. That was leading. Yes.
Okay, let me fix it. What's the difference in the statements that I had you read for this jury just a few moments ago?
Objection. Objection, that's what it's clear.
Overruled.
The statement I read that you showed me is the statement I gave to the police after I checked all of my times. And after I was positive with what times everything took place.
And were those accurate times?
Yes, they are.
Was that the truth?
Yes, it is.
Is that what happened that night?
Yes, it is.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Ms. Clark, anything else? All right, Ms. Aronson, thank you very much. You're excused.
Thank you.
All right, next witness. Oh, would you hand the exhibit back to Ms. Clark, please? Thank you.
Call Francesca Harmon, Your Honor.
All right, Francesca Harmon. And Mrs. Robertson, let's... right, hold on just a second. Mrs. Robertson.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you may give in the cause of before this court should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please have a seat and witness stand and state your first and last names for the record.
My name is Francesca Harmon.
May I have the spelling, please?
I can't hear the question.
Could you speak spelling of your name, please?
The first or the last?
Both.
First, Francesca, Francesca. Last name Harmon, Harman.
Good afternoon, Ms. Harmon.
Good afternoon.
Are you a little nervous this afternoon?
Yes, I am.
Have you ever testified before?
No, I have not.
We're going to just ask a very few questions of you this afternoon. Were you in the Brentwood area on June the 12th, 1994?
Yes, I was.
And is there any reason why that date is important to you and you remember it?
That was the date of a double homicide in Brentwood.
Where were you in the early evening hours of June the 12th?
I was at 11908 Dorothy Street at a dinner party.
Who was this dinner party being held by?
It was being held by one colleague of mine who I work with, and then another colleague was also there, and then an upstairs neighbor.
What type of work do you do?
I'm a convention service manager at a local hotel.
Which hotel is that?
It's the...
Hold on. Is that necessary?
Just if they wanted to get a plug for the hotel? No, it is not, Your Honor. And at what time did you arrive for this dinner party?
Somewhere between 6 o'clock and 7 o'clock. The dinner party was called for 6, and I arrived, I would say, about 6:35.
And what time did you leave the dinner party?
10:15.
How do you know the time?
There's a clock on a credenza by the doorway when I left, and so you can't help but see the clock as you leave.
Did you have work the next morning?
Yes, I did.
And what time do you work the next morning?
I had to be at work at 8:30 a.m.
Did you have anything of an alcoholic beverage to drink during this dinner party?
No, I did not.
Did you go by yourself?
I drove there by myself, yes.
Did you leave by yourself?
Yes, I did.
Would you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what happened when you left this apartment dinner party?
Do you want me to point?
Yes, please, if that'll be helpful to you.
Dorothy Street, and this street is Westgate.
Do we need that microphone, Your Honor?
Can hear.
Can you hear me? Anyway, this is Westgate, this is Dorothy, and 11908 is the corner apartment right here. My car was parked right in front of the building facing east. So when I left, I got in my car, I had to take the club off, turn the ignition on, pull out of the space, and then go to this corner here and pull a U-turn and come back down Dorothy to the stop sign here at Dorothy and Bundy.
Let's just stop there for a moment. First, you said you had to take the club off.
Yes.
What is that?
The club is a metal contraption so that my car isn't stolen.
And about how long did it take you from the time you last saw the clock at 10:15 in the apartment to the time you actually started your car on Dorothy?
It's probably about two minutes before I left, did my pleasantries, walked from the apartments in the back of the building, and I had to walk to the front of the building, go down the stairs, out of the building, to my car, and then in the car do all, take the club off.
What was the traffic conditions like on Dorothy?
Light.
Was there any traffic going on that you remember?
No. Dorothy, it's a little bit of a narrow street, so you have to be really conscious of cars coming, because otherwise you're going to run right into each other.
What about the noise on that street? Can you describe that for the jury?
When I was in my car here, coming back down, I didn't hear any kind of noise that I felt was unusual in any way.
Was it a quiet evening?
Yes, it was.
When you got to the corner of Dorothy and Bundy, do you have a way of estimating what time it was?
Yes, I do.
And how can you do that?
In my car, I have a digital display for my radio, and all the displays are in the same area. The digital display is broken, and the only way I can tell what radio station I'm on, is if I stick my finger on it and look. And so by looking, the clock is right above it, and it was 10:20 because I was looking to see what station I was on.
How fast were you driving as you got to Dorothy and Bundy?
Here, probably about 10 miles per hour.
When you got to the corner of the intersection, could you describe what the conditions were at that location to the jury, as far as traffic and noise in the area?
I didn't think that there was anything out of the unusual at the corner. When I got there, I stopped at the stop sign, and then I rolled the car out a little bit into the street, and I checked both ways just to be sure nothing was coming. And I made a right turn, going north up towards Montana.
You were headed home.
Yes, I was.
At some time later, did it come to your attention that you had passed the condominium where Nicole Brown Simpson lived and was murdered?
Objection, Your Honor, please.
Sustain, rephrase the question.
Have you ever learned where Nicole Brown Simpson lived?
Yes, Your Honor.
Next question.
Yes, I have learned where she lives.
And do you have any knowledge as to whether you passed that location?
On the night of the murder, I didn't know that she lived there.
Subsequently, did you come to learn where she lived?
Yes, I did.
And subsequently, did you come to discover whether or not you had passed that location?
Yes, I did. It was that Tuesday, June 14th, when I was told about what happened. And then I got into a discussion with a young lady that held the party, exactly what we were doing. And then, my gosh, is it possible we were having dinner when this was happening? And consequently, watching TV and seeing pictures. So that's...
Can you point out to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury where the condominium that you later found that Nicole Brown Simpson resided at
This
was
one.
located?
Here,
Pointing to the red
one.
stamp. About how fast were you driving when you went past that location?
Well, I'd been at a stop, so 0, and then going up to 5, maybe 10 miles by the time I passed it, and then accelerating to get home.
Was there any traffic as you passed that location?
Just traffic that I would think was normal on the street.
Is there any noise that was unusual?
I didn't hear any noise.
Did you hear the sound of a barking dog?
No, I did not.
Did you hear the wailing of a dog?
No, I did not.
Did you hear any argument or loud voices?
No, I did not.
Did you hear the sounds of something that would resemble a fight?
No, No, I did not.
You then proceeded home?
Then I proceeded home. Went to Montana here, and I turned left, and I took Montana all the way home to Santa Monica.
Did you notice any white vehicle in the area on Bundy between Dorothy and Montana?
No, I did not.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Mr. Darden, we'll go to 315.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Did you happen to drive to the area located behind Nicole Brown's condo that night?
Is that this area here?
Well, you tell me. Do you know where she lived?
No. I mean, I didn't know that was her house until after the fact, and I would have no reason to be on this street here.
Guess you don't know whether or not there was a white Ford Bronco parked behind that structure at 1020 or not. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Are you being, or rather, were you kept in a room today as you waited to testify?
Yes, I was.
Were you kept there with other defense witnesses?
Could you be more clear on the question, please?
Well, were you in a room today with
Proceed.
Ellen Aronson, a young woman wearing a beige or taupe blazer?
Very, very, very briefly.
Okay. Did you see her on Bundy, walking on Bundy Avenue that night at 1020?
I didn't notice her.
Okay. In fact, You have stated before, have you not, that you did not see any pedestrians on the street that
That's-
is on Bundy?
That's correct.
Okay, so you didn't see Ellen Aronson,
No, I didn't.
and you didn't see Danny Mandel.
No.
Okay, and it's your testimony that you were on Bundy at 10:20 p.m. is that
I was at
right?
the corner of Dorothy and Bundy at 10:20.
And then you made a right turn.
Then I made a right turn.
Yeah. You were driving north at that point, is that correct?
Correct.
You drove north on Bundy,
Correct.
didn't see anybody walking.
I didn't notice anything that was unusual.
Now, as you drove north on Bundy, Nicole Brown's condo would have been to your left, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. You're driving on the right-hand side of the street.
Correct.
The condo is on the opposite side of the street. Is that correct?
Correct.
Is there a yellow line dividing the middle of the street?
Yes.
Okay. And so I take it then that as you drove north on Bundy Drive, you were looking at the road.
Correct.
You were looking ahead.
That's correct.
You weren't looking to your left across the street at Bundy.
I would have no reason to.
Have you been back to the area near 875 South Bundy?
Yes, I have.
And why did you go back?
I have friends that live on Dorothy. I have friends that live on Darlington. I have friends that live on Kiowa. So I'm always coming down Bundy.
Okay. Now, as you drove north on Bundy, you had your radio on?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And what kind of car were you driving?
Nissan 300Z.
Okay. Convertible?
No.
Hard top?
Yes.
Was the top on?
Yes.
And you didn't hear any noise that sounded like fighting?
No, I did not.
And you couldn't hear any noise that sounded like fighting because you were listening to the radio, is that correct? Oh.
I had the radio on. I did not hear any noise.
Okay. You didn't hear any scuffling?
I did not.
You didn't hear anyone yell anything?
No, I did not.
And you couldn't hear those things because you had the window rolled up, is that correct?
No, the window is actually cracked because I always open the window for circulation.
Okay.
So the window was open.
Okay, so the window was cracked?
Mm-hmm.
Is that yes?
That's correct.
The window wasn't completely open?
No, it was not.
Okay. Now, having gone back and looked at the location at 875 South Bundy, have you noticed that there's a very, very large palm tree almost directly in front of the walkway at 875 South Bundy?
There's a lot of things in front of the walkway right now. There's gates and yellow tape and trees and bushes.
Well, do you recall seeing those trees and bushes at that location when you passed it that night?
The trees and bushes I saw would have been as I turned right and the headlights fell on the trees and bushes, and then as the car came north, I would see the street. So that would be the trees and the bushes that I saw.
May it be marked.
You want to show that to Mr. Shapiro? All right. Mr. Darden,
People's next in order, Your Honor.
496.
Okay. You won't have to cut the feed for this one. Let me show you a photograph, if I may. People's 496.
Right here?
Mr. Darden.
That's Bundy Drive,
Yes, it is.
and you made a right turn at that intersection and turned right, is that correct?
That's correct.
And do you see a bright light there in the background near one of the structures?
To the right, to the left of that palm tree?
Yes.
Yes, I do.
Okay. And is that what you would have seen as you made that right turn on the Bundy?
Actually, my headlights don't cut, they cut off a little bit before that. I see that when I did the trip again, my headlights cut across onto that back gate and then the arched gate and then come across the low bushes and come into the street going north. They don't go up that high.
They don't go all the way up to 875 South Bundy?
No. You mean the actual entranceway?
Yes.
No, they didn't. They cut off, I mean, as I turning this way, if you see that arched gate, they shine on the arched gate, then they shine on the low bushes, and then they come across, and I'm headed north on Bundy.
And when this witness indicated turning, she indicated a turning motion to the right.
Okay. So in other words, you couldn't see the gate.
The gate in
Bundy.
question for the murders? No, I
Yes.
did not.
You say that you redrove the route.
Yes, I have redriven the route.
Did you do that with the defense, or did you do it on your own?
I did it with the defense.
Did you tell them that your headlights didn't hit the gate at 875 South Bundy?
I didn't have to. They were in the car with me.
And yet you're here to testify anyway, is that correct?
Sustain.
What's the next? $497. You don't have to cut. Now, looking at that photograph, people 497, do you see a large tree there?
The tree in the foreground?
Yes.
Okay, I see that large palm tree in the foreground.
Okay, and is that tree directly in front of 875 South Bundy?
It looks to be from this picture.
Okay. And as you passed the 875 South Bundy location going north on Bundy,
Yeah.
as you looked over to your left, you would have seen that palm tree. Is that correct?
I guess it would if I had looked.
Okay.
I didn't look.
Overruled.
You didn't see 3 Hispanic males in ski masks on Bundy, did you?
No, I did not.
Just about that. And I take it that you couldn't hear a dog barking given the fact that you had the radio on, is that right?
I did not hear a dog barking.
Okay. Now, you testified that you left your friend's house at 10:15.
Correct.
Okay, you didn't look at your own watch to determine what time it was when you left.
No, I looked at the desk clock that's on the credenza.
Okay, and is that credenza located in the kitchen?
There's another clock in the kitchen. There's a stove that has a clock in the middle of it where you usually turn the timer.
Okay. Is that an antique stove in the kitchen?
No, it's a modern apartment building.
Okay. You didn't look at the clock on the stove before you left?
I wasn't in the kitchen. I was near the kitchen. We had cleared the dishes. I looked at that clock. Then we went back into the living room. And then I left with the upstairs neighbor, and I looked at that clock as I left because that's by the doorway.
Okay, when you say that clock.
Well, it's the desk clock on her credenza.
Okay. Who is Randall Later, Later?
He is a gentleman that I work with.
Okay, and what does he do?
He is in the security department of the hotel.
Okay. And is he also a private investigator?
Yes, he is.
And he took your statement, is that correct?
Yes, he did.
And he provided your statement to the defense?
I gave it to him and...
Hold on.
Okay.
Overruled.
Okay, you gave your statement to Mr. Later. Is that
Yes, I
correct?
did.
Now, do you know a man named Tom Lane?
I do.
Okay. And do you know a man named Bob Bell?
No, I don't.
Does Tom Lane work for the same company you work for?
He doesn't work for the same company. He's just located in the same building.
You know Bob Wells? Wells?
Yes, I do know who he is.
Does he work for the same company you work for?
Yes, he's the owner.
Thank you.
Mr. Shapiro?
Ms. Harmon, how sure are you of the time when you were at the corner of Dorothy and Bundy?
I'm very sure, because pushing my finger in to look at the digital display, the clock is right there, and I looked at both, and I'm positive.
And the time was?
10:20.
About how long would it take you to get to the corner of Bundy and Montana? About what time do you estimate you got there?
Maybe 10:22, 10:23. 10:22, probably.
So clearly by 10:27, you were out of the area of the condominium of Nicole Brown Simpson?
Yes, I was.
How loud do you play your radio, and how loud, well, strike that. How loud were you playing your radio that night?
I don't consider it very loud.
You don't have one of those blast systems in your car?
No, I do not.
And how sure are you that you did not hear the sound of a barking or barking dogs?
I'm very sure I didn't hear anything.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Mr. Darden?
Ms. Harmon, the times that you've given us today, the accuracy of those times depend on the accuracy of someone else's kitchen clock. Is that correct?
And
Overruled.
desk clock, yes, it would.
Okay. And as well as the accuracy of the digital clock in your vehicle. Is that correct?
Yes, it would.
And so if those clocks are 1 or 2 or more or less minutes off, then your time would be off, wouldn't it?
It would, except I usually set the clock to KFWB, so I feel confident that the clock in my car was accurate.
I set mine to 92.3 the beach. Thank you. That's all.
What station were you listening to?
97.1, KLSX.
Classic rock. Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Harmon.
Thank you.
All right, we'll take our recess at this time. Ladies and gentlemen, please remember all my admonitions to you. We'll stand in recess for 15. Mr. Cochran.
Yes, thank you very kindly, Your Honor. Our next witness, Your Honor, is Ms. Denise Pilnick. Ms. Pilnick, report, please.
All right, ma'am, could you stand right there, please, and face the clerk?
Raise your right hand, please. You do solemnly swear that the testimony you may give in the trial opinion before this court should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do. Please have a seat on the witness stand and state so your first and last name for the record.
Denise Pilnack, Denise Pilnak.
Mr. Cochran.
Pull the microphone towards you a little bit, Ms. Pilnick.
Yes.
Good afternoon, Ms. Pilnick.
Good afternoon.
Ms. Pilnick, do you presently reside in the 900 block of South Bundy? I won't give your exact address.
Yes.
And back in the month of June of 1994, did you live in the 900 block of South Bundy?
Yes.
What line of work are you generally in, Ms. Pilnack?
I've been in the high-tech publishing business for about the last 10 years.
All right. Now, I'd like to direct your attention back to the date of June 12th of 1994. You recall that particular day?
Yes, I do.
And was that a Sunday?
Yes.
And as a result of your work in the publishing field, do you have any specific, strike that, as a result of your work in the publishing field, are you kind of a stickler for time?
I've been in sales for 20 years, so I have to account for my time.
And so you're kind of used to counting for your time?
Yes, sir.
Now, with regard to that date, June 12th, 1994, do you know the various things you did on that particular date?
Yes, I do.
And let's start with the morning. What were you doing at about 8:30 that morning?
I had to go over to my girlfriend's house and feed her dog. She was out of town.
All right. And what'd you do after you fed your girlfriend's dog?
I met a bunch of friends. We meet every Sunday at 9 o'clock and run, and I ran 11 miles.
All right, you're a runner, are you?
Long distance, yes.
And you ran 11 miles that Sunday? Mm-hmm. You got to answer out. You got to say yes or no.
Yes.
All right. And do you run most days or many days?
Every day.
Did you know who Miss Nicole Brown Simpson was?
Yes, I did.
And you knew where she lived prior to June 12th, 1994?
No, I didn't.
How did you know who she was before that?
I used to see her running with her girlfriend, Cora.
All right.
several times a week. But I just knew her. Just living in Brentwood, you know everyone.
All right. And you lived in Brentwood for a period of time, have you?
Yes, I have.
Now let's shift to the afternoon. We won't go through your entire day. Let's shift to the afternoon. What were you doing around 5:30 on that day?
Went to church,
Is that a church in that area?
St. Martin's of Tours on Sunset.
All right. And after that, did you have occasion to do something else?
Yes, my mother was in from the Midwest with her husband, and they were staying at my sister's. They came over, and we ended up having dinner.
All right. And you took them to some restaurant for dinner?
Yes, to Louise's.
All right. And that's Louise's located where?
It's on San Vicente. I don't know what the little side street is. It's right across from Toscana.
All right. Now, with regard to the times that evening, what time did you finish dinner at Louise's, if you know, and what time did you arrive back home?
We finished dinner sometime around close to 9:30 and got home just a couple minutes after. It only takes about 3 minutes.
To get home from Louise's?
Yes.
All right. What street is Louise's on, if you recall?
It is on San Vicente Boulevard.
All right. Now, you then returned home. Did you return home in the company of anyone else?
Yes.
And who was that?
My girlfriend was over, Judy T. Lander. She had joined us for dinner. She'd been over all day.
So how many people went to dinner? 4?
4.
There's Judy T. Lander, yourself, your mom, and
And her husband, Nick.
Nick. All right. Now, at some point after you returned home from dinner with Judy T. Lander, did your mom and Nick have occasion to leave your residence from the 900 block of South Bundy?
Yes, they did.
Can you tell the jury and the court and jury about what time they left your residence that evening?
When we came back, they just came in for about 5 minutes, so it was around 9:45 to 10 to 10.
And they were going someplace at that time?
They were staying at my sister's house in Torrance, so they were driving back to her home.
Okay. Now, after they left, did you have occasion to see what time it was after that as you looked toward obtaining some messages from your machine?
I did look at the clock because my girlfriend had been over all day using my computer.
And again, now what girlfriend are we talking about?
Judy T. Lander,
Okay. What time was that you looked at the clock?
10:18.
All right. And are you sure it was that time?
I am a stickler with time. I don't go anywhere without 2 watches when it's important.
For the record, Your Honor, you have 2 watches on today?
Yeah, my running watch, which is very accurate, and my other watch, which isn't.
So you keep 2 watches at all times?
Well, not at all times, but when it's real important.
All right. Appreciate you being on time here today.
Yes.
Thank you. Now, you were about to tell us that your friend Judy T. Lander had been over pretty much all day using your computer, and so you had occasion to look at a clock or something to determine the time, and it was 10:18.
Yes.
Okay, and what happened at 10:18, please?
Well, Judy had been over all day, and I noticed the digital time. I said to her, Judy, it's 10:18. You've been here all day, and I'm going out of town in a couple days. You're going to have to leave. So
Well, you said, let's see now. You said that she's a friend, right?
she's a
So
friend.
you said that in a nice way.
In a
right?
nice way.
All right. So you said that you have to leave, or it's time to go home, right?
Yeah, it was time to go home, and I said, let's just print out your report, and you can look at it tomorrow, and any changes I'd be happy to make tomorrow.
All right.
But I had things I had to get done.
Okay, I understand. Did you at that time assist her and print out anything for her before she left?
Yes.
What did you print out for Judy T. Lander?
I printed out a letter that she had been working on all day, and actually it's 2 pages and then about 2 lines on the 3rd page. And I printed out 2 copies. I wasn't sure if it was 1 or 2. I think it was 2.
All right. Did you give that to her?
Yes, I did.
All right. And so you parted company at about what time?
10:21.
All right. And again, you're pretty sure about that time?
Well, I retimed everything. My little speech to her took about 45 seconds, and the printing out was 1 minute and 25 seconds for each 3-page copy. So that's right about 3 minutes.
All right. So after the fact, you went back and redid these things yourself. Is that right? Mm-hmm. Means yes?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay. All right. So how did you escort her out, or tell us what you did when Judy T. Lander was leaving?
Whenever my girlfriends leave my home, I always turn off the porch light, stand on the porch, watch them till they get in their car and take off, and then I make them call me when they get home, just so I know they're safe.
All right.
And I did exactly that.
All right. With regard, let's back up for a moment. When your mom and Nick left, did you see them outside also?
Yes, I did.
Okay, and did you make arrangements also for your mom to call? When she got home?
I didn't ask my mother to call.
All right.
I told her I'd call her later.
But you made arrangements for Judy T-Lander
Yes.
to call. Now, when you walked out and you're on the porch with Judy T-Lander, can you describe for the jury the condition of Bundy Drive that particular night, that Sunday evening?
That Sunday evening, it was exceptionally quiet. As long as I've lived in that home, I never remember a night when it was absolutely still. There wasn't a sound to be heard.
All right, now, and what time is this that it's exceptionally quiet?
It was about, Judy and I were outside talking, probably between 10:21 and about 10:25.
At that time, you're out on your porch, is that correct?
Yes,
And how long had you lived at that location at that point?
4 years.
So in the 4 years you lived there, you'd never heard Bundy so quiet, is that right?
Yes.
So that we're clear, I want to show you People's 26 for identification. I might approach, Your Honor,
Yes.
and I'm going to give you a pointer and ask if you would familiarize yourself. You've seen this diagram before, have you not?
Yes.
And I want to indicate to you, counsel, that the red here is the Cole Brown condo, Cole Brown Simpson condo, and I want you to look. This is Dorothy, and this would be Darlington, and I'd like for you to point and show the jury where you lived approximately.
Right in the middle of this block,
All right.
on the east side.
All right, Your Honor, for the record of People's 26, Ms. Pilnack is indicating for the record she lives between Dorothy and Darlington on the east side of Bundy. Is that correct?
Yes.
And so that we're clear, have you had occasion to measure the distance from the corner there of Dorothy to your residence? You know, generally?
It's about 75 yards.
All right. So you know generally where you are at that location.
I'm a distance runner.
Okay. So you're on the east side of the street, right?
Yes.
Okay. So your porch is there where you and Judy T-Lander stood before she left. Is that correct?
Yes.
And at that time, it was about 10:25 p.m. on June 12th, 1994, right?
Yes.
And it was as quieter than you could ever remember it. Is that correct?
Yes.
Do you remember seeing any people walking around at that point? Seeing
No.
people walking? You remember seeing anybody walking dogs at that point?
No.
Do you remember hearing any dogs barking at that point at 10:25?
No.
All right, now, after you saw Judy T-Lander off, did you have occasion to come back in and do something at that time at about 10:25 p.m.?
The minute Judy left, I picked up the telephone and called my mother to make
And-
sure she got home safely.
Now, your mother had left, I recall, at about 9:45 to 9:50?
Yes.
And she had to go to Guardian or Torrance or something?
Excuse me, just a second. Ms. Pilmack, if you would you allow the attorney to finish asking you the question completely before you start to answer? Court reporter can only take down one person at a time. Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Mr. Cochran?
So let me just, I'll try to be straight, Your Honor. As I understood your testimony, your mom and Nick had left at something like 9:45 to 9:50, is that correct?
Yes.
And after Judy T-Lander left, you then called your mom at some location, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and what time was it that you called your mother?
10:25.
And you have provided us with a phone bill, which I'd like to show the council. Mark is our next exhibit. Thank you. Council has it, Your Honor. May I mark this as the defendant's next in order, Your Honor?
1237.
We'll mark this defendant's exhibit 1237. And I want to approach you, Ms. Pilnack, and I want to ask you what defendant's 1237 is. Will you look at that, please?
Yes.
Okay, tell the jury what that is.
That's my phone bill.
All right, that's your phone bill. And what's the date of that phone bill?
The date of the phone bill, well, the bill date is July 10th, but it includes calls from June 10th through June 15th on this page.
You have a phone call about June 12th, 1994 at about 10:25 p.m.?
Yes, I do.
Where is that call to?
It's to my sister's house.
Is that where your mom was?
Yes.
Did you connect with your mom and she made it?
Yes, I did.
And so this phone bill indicates the time that you call your mother at 10:25 p.m. Says Gardena on it with a phone number. Is that correct?
Yes.
You talked to her for about 3 minutes, did you?
Yes.
All right. Now I'm not going to put this on the Elmo, Your Honor, because I don't want to block out all these numbers. But this is an accurate copy of your phone bill that you received after June 12th, 1994. Is that right?
Yes.
The one you got on July 10th.
Yes.
Okay, is that right? So that reflects the fact that for about 3 minutes, is that accurate? That you talked to your mom? Well, let me rephrase that, Your Honor. Look at that phone bill and tell us how long you talked at 10:25 on the phone.
3 minutes.
Is that about accurate?
Yes.
All right. And after that, now that was make it about 10:28. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. And tell us then what happened after you placed this phone call to your mother.
Well, actually, while I was speaking with my mother, it was a portable phone. I washed 4 glasses and put them away, crystal glasses. Then I washed my face, brushed my teeth, flossed, and then I went into the kitchen to bring a bunch of newspapers and reading material into my bedroom and put those in the bedroom, and then I went back into the bathroom.
All right. Now, these you have a habit about collecting reading materials and keeping papers till you throw them away.
I don't throw anything away until I read it.
All right. So you collected up. What did you do? You collected up a number of papers and things.
Yes.
All right. And ultimately, you took those things and gathered them up, and you took them someplace in your house.
Yes, into my bedroom. Because
Now, up to that time, ma'am, up to the time that you picked these newspapers up and you brushed your teeth and flossed and everything, had you heard any loud dogs barking at that time?
No.
Was it still very quiet out?
I wasn't outside, but I didn't hear any noises from outside.
You couldn't hear anything from inside. Is that correct?
Correct.
And when you had been out on your porch and Judy Thielander had left, had it been very, very quiet?
Extremely quiet.
All right. Now, at some point thereafter, did you hear a dog or dogs start barking?
When I went back into the bathroom, I was drying my hands, and I heard a dog barking.
All right. And to the best of your recollection, what time was that you heard this dog barking at that point? Your best recollection?
About 10:35.
All right. As you can tell, that was the earliest it was?
It could be 10:33, because I've retimed those activities.
All right. Between 10:33, 10:35, is that correct?
Yes.
All right. And you never came outside to check that dog, did you?
No.
All right. You just heard the dog barking?
Yes.
And did you hear this sound of barking? Did it continue for a period of time?
It continued for a long time.
All right. Do you recall what time you went to sleep that night?
Yes.
What time did you approximately fall off to sleep?
Well, I closed the lights off at 12:30
All right.
a.m.
You closed the lights off at 12:30. How soon after that did you go to sleep, if you know?
Probably right afterward.
All right. And at some point, did the dog, this dog stop barking?
Yes.
All right. Were you able to tell whether or not during that time frame of about 10:35 till you turned the lights off at 12:30, you ever heard more than one dog barking?
I'm not sure. I heard one continuous bark for a very long time.
You can't tell us whether or not there was one dog or a different dog or whatever, but you heard a continuous bark. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. And so when you finally got ready to fall asleep, did the barking stop at some point?
The barking had stopped.
All right. And that would have been at about 12:30, the barking stopped?
No, it had stopped before then.
Okay. Do you know when it had stopped approximately?
Approximately, it was a long time. I would have guessed that from the time it started barking, it had to be 45 minutes or so. But I don't know
All right,
precisely.
You didn't write anything down about that?
No, that
All
I
right.
didn't.
Now, with regard to the time of 10:15, at which time you've indicated you were still in your house, Did you hear a dog barking at all at that time?
No,
And when you came out on that porch with Judy Tielander, and that was, I think you told us, between 10:21 and 10:25, you didn't hear any dogs barking at that time, did you?
no, we commented on how quiet it was.
When you say we, you're talking about you and
Judy
Tielander.
and I commented.
Now, connection with this, do you know and are you acquainted with a man by the name of Pablo Fenves?
Yes, I am.
And how do you know who he is?
He's another San Vicente runner.
All right, he's the person who runs in that general area
Yes.
out there. And did you have occasion to see him a short time after he testified in this trial, in this case?
I saw him the following day after the preliminary hearing.
All right, had he testified at the preliminary hearing?
Yes,
And with regard to his testimony, did you have a conversation with him?
yes, I did.
Did that conversation concern the time that the dog started barking on that particular night?
Yes,
Did you tell him that the dogs, well, I haven't finished the question yet.
Sustain. The way it's phrased.
All right, let me see if I can phrase it another way. Did you have occasion to discuss with him the time that you heard the dogs start barking that night, or the dog started barking that night? Oh,
yes,
all right. And what'd you tell him in that regard? State of mind.
Sustain.
State of mind.
Sustain. It's irrelevant.
All right. With regard to, did you heard his testimony at the preliminary hearing?
yes,
Did you agree with him as to what time the dog started barking that night?
no,
Overruled.
Can I get your answer yet?
She said no.
And did you talk to him about that?
yes.
And where did that conversation take place?
In front of his condominium. I was coming back from a run.
And how long did that conversation last?
Probably about 10 minutes, 5 or 10 minutes.
And did he participate in the conversation at all?
Yes,
When's the last time you saw Mr. Pablo Fendes?
this morning at 8:06 a.m.
Did you have occasion at that time to talk about the same subject again, just generally?
Yes,
About the time the dogs started barking back then?
yes.
Does anything he said to you at any time change your mind as to what time you heard the dog start barking?
No,
Overruled.
Now, Ms. Pilnack, at some time on June 13th, which I believe was a Monday, did you have occasion to go running on that Monday morning?
yes,
And was that your regular Monday morning run?
yes.
And you have some records today that you can show us what time you left home to go running that day also?
I usually, well, I have a phone bill, but I usually meet someone at a certain time and we have a
What time?
specific run. Usually about 8:30.
All right. And on that date, have you looked at some records that you had to determine whether or not you got a call right before you started to run?
Yes,
All right. And after that, after the phone call, you then went out running?
yes, I did.
Overruled.
All right.
It's
Now,
foundational at this point.
foundational, that's right, sure. When you came out of the house on that Monday morning, did you see anything unusual in and about Bundy in that location?
Yes, there was yellow tape all around the crime area.
All right. And what time was that you made that observation?
Right about 8:30.
Had you been aware of anything prior to that time at all?
No,
And when you saw this yellow tape, you didn't have any idea of what had happened, what had taken place, did you?
no.
Did you then go on a run?
I did, but after I asked about what was happening
All right,
in the
you-
neighborhood,
You inquired about what was going on, right?
yes,
All right. And did you ascertain or find out that there had been some murders in your neighborhood?
yes. I was told there was a double homicide.
At that time, you didn't know who was involved, did you?
No,
You then went on your run?
yes,
And at some point, you returned and came back from your run, is that correct?
Yes.
Do you recall approximately what time it was that you got back?
Probably about 10 o'clock or a little bit before 10.
All right. And after you got back home, after about a little before 10 o'clock on the Monday morning, June 13th, did you have occasion to talk to one or two police officers at some point?
Yes.
And at that time, did you become aware of who one of the victims was of the homicide?
It was prior
All right,
to them coming over.
Before that.
Yes.
And you became aware that Miss Nicole Brown Simpson was one of the victims?
Yes.
And that was very upsetting to you, was it not?
Very upsetting.
And when you talked to the police, did they come to your home?
Yes.
And it was a short time after you returned from your run and after you'd found out that Nicole Brown Simpson had been one of the victims of the homicide. Is that right?
Yes.
When you talked to the police officer, did you indicate to them the approximate time that you thought the dogs had started barking the night before?
Sounds awfully leading to me.
Okay, let me see if I can restate it. When you talk to the police, you talk at all about dogs barking?
Yes.
Do you recall what you said at that time to the police, if anything?
Well, because of what had happened, I was in shock, and they asked me about what time I thought I heard the dogs bark, and I remember saying something around 11:30.
Was that accurate?
No.
All right. Did you, at some time later, determine that wasn't accurate?
Yes, later that day.
All right. And how'd you make that determination?
Well, I just thought back about the events of the night, what had happened, and it was very easy to figure, exactly what time I heard the dogs barking.
So before that date was out, before June 13th, 1994, were you aware that 11:30 was not a correct time?
Yes.
Now, after that, of course, you got your phone bill and various other things happened. Is that correct?
Yes.
Sustained.
Foundational. At some point later in time, did you ever at any point send a correcting fax or letter to any detectives in this case?
Yes, I did.
And when you did that, when was that approximately? Was that it? Do you know when that was?
It was the day the trial began.
All right, the day this trial began, is that correct?
Yes.
And at that time, you sent, what'd you do?
I called the district attorney's office, and I believe I ended up speaking with Detective Van Adder.
All right.
After making several calls, just to get to the right person.
All right, and after you talked to Detective Van Adder, did you?
I faxed him an itinerary of that day.
All right, you faxed him an itinerary of everything you did that day?
Yes.
The date of June 12th, 1994?
Yes.
Spelling out all the things we've talked about here and some others that we haven't talked about?
Yes.
And did you tell him at that time what times the dog had started barking on June 12th in the evening hours?
Yes, I did.
And what time was that, Ms. Coleman?
About 10:35.
Are you sure about that?
Again, it could be between 10:33 and 10:35. Yes.
But you're sure about that?
Yes.